Hey everybody, this is Silverspook, and this is the Silverspook live stream video about Hawaii anti-imperialism, anti-imperialism in Hawaii, and about the U.S. occupation, military occupation in Hawaii, and how much longer will that last? How the U.S. GENOCIDE and its support of that, rising Hawaiian consciousness, and the rise of the BRICS, or the uh, Russia, China, Brazil, the Eastern and Global South bloc. How the rise of that and the fall of the West will reshape Hawaii and the Pacific. So, so today we're going to be talking about the range of topics, but I want to kind of try to focus in on this because this central topic of the U.S. military in Hawaii, what's happening right now. There are multiple things happening. There is these actions that you can see on the screen. So if you don't learn anything else from this, follow the Keone DeFranco, who is the person speaking there in that video. If you're on Twitter, Keone DeFranco. There's also a account called the Kiai Report, and there's several other accounts. Holly, I will have links to those in the chat and description. But so if you want to learn more about a lot of those details, follow those people. They're more involved directly in this even than I am. I am a native Hawaiian, but I have a wide array of things that I am engaged in. But as a native Hawaiian and as an anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist, anti-GENOCIDE, and trying to do what I can for the Lahui, or the nation. That's what that word means. I'm trying to spread as much education about this as possible. And so, because this is going to be pivotal, not just for Hawaii, for the future of the United States, for the future of the people in the United States, the American people, the people in what is called America, right? And not just for the United States. It's going to be pivotal for everyone. Not because I want to have a big head and be narcissistic about it. Like, Hawaii is the most important place in the world. No, that's not the point. It is like Palestine, though, like the Levant region of the Middle East. It is a focal. It is a major contention point, right? There are several in the world like it. Everywhere in the world is important. But what happens to Hawaii will be pivotal. Hawaii is the 50th state of the United States, right? If Hawaii, we'll discuss what it means. What makes places, countries, states, nations, etc. But if Hawaii is globally no longer recognized as a state of the United States, if Hawaii becomes, if Hawaii being a part of the United States is seriously questioned in the United States and around the world, and in publicly, like how and where and when and to what degree and what economically and militarily. If the United States loses Hawaii, this is from within the United States' perspective. If the United States loses Hawaii and becomes 49 states, that signifies that's a major deep that is a deep stab to the stomach of the belly of the beast, is a big wound to the U.S. empire, Is the I still believe that it will be the beginning of the end, right? Because if many other places have talked about and thought about separating themselves out from the United States, none of the at the present moment, Texas has talked about it a lot. Obviously, states tried to secede, and it resulted in a civil war in the United States in the mid 1800s. California and the West Coast have talked about it. The California at one point, at the height of Trump, there was a lot of rumbling in California. California separating itself from the United States and becoming its own political and economic bloc entity because it didn't want to be part of the Donald Trump conservative United States. None of these have succeeded yet, and obviously this is very complicated because, what makes a country? What is a country, right? What is a state? What are these things? These are ultimately the consensual hallucinations of people, human beings, who, not to say that it's all imaginary, but they have reality, but they exist in the minds of the people that believe in those entities, right? And it's not just one thing. It's not just like, because people, if you ask people if they believe in, the tooth fairy, it becomes real. But it has to do with the real lived experiences, the history, and it's kind of a lot of repetition, and the informational, the educational, the family. It's everything in your life, and then how the symbols are attached to the economics that are attached to those symbols, right? The United States is capitalist system. The belief in, and as I talked about in a lot of previous videos, what builds civilizations. A civilization is different from a state as well. In the greater, larger things that involve more than simply a kind of copy pasted, especially in the Westphalian nature, right? The United States was constructed largely artificially over the last, just a couple hundred years, whereas there are multi-thousand-year-old civilizations around the world. In Asia, there's 56 ethnic regions in China. China is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, certainly the oldest and most powerful and most successful civilization state of 50 plus separate, organically evolving cultures and languages, right? Hawaii has a civilization beneath it. It has culture and language. The stories of Maui, when you watch Moana, which, again, I have opinions on that and whether you should or not. But it is what it is. But when you watch Moana, the language that she's speaking, the symbols that Maui has is fishhook, the myths and the legend and the stories, right, that emerged. Those are a multi-thousand-year-old, organically evolved culture, language, stories, and so that's part of what makes something a civilization, in the sense of long continuing cultural history, language that has emerged amongst a particular group, subgroups, and there's not a specific hard line of where it begins and ends, but there is Austronesian or indigenous Pacific Islander Kanaka Maoli civilizations, right, that have existed for thousands of years. The Maori in Aotearoa, the Kanaki in what they call New Caledonia. The French colonizers call it that, but these have been civilizations. In Madagascar, we have relatives that speak our language, right? The language they speak is basically, we can understand each other. Madagascar is in Africa, or it's right off the coast of Africa, that island there. And Hawaiians, we can speak to them because we have a civilization underlying the Western Westphalian overlaid imperialist colonialist state of Hawaii on top of Hawaiian civilization, Kanaka Maoli civilization, Eastern and Asia Pacific civilization. Civilizations are like great spanning coral reefs, or like trees. they have roots and they have trunks and they have branches that move out through time, right? And they interact with each other in every facet, in culture, in economics. When somebody trades, like beads from a Pacific island to for a sanshan from Okinawa, and then they trade that to somebody for silk from Fujian province in China, and they trade that later on to for watermelon or coffee from Levant region of West Asia, and they trade that in Djibouti for African clothing, right? This is civilizational exchange that's happening, right? The dumpling is everywhere. It just, and I'm going into a deep discussion into some directions maybe I should have waited longer for, but I want to bring that up because that's part of why the Hawaiian civilization, right? Which has always been, civilizations always evolve. It's another point, right? They're not static, right? The Western conception of indigeneity is deeply problematic, because it locates in a distant past a false idealized version of what non-white, non-Western peoples were and must be, and must, if they exist, they must be what they were at this 500 years ago point in time, or 1,000 years ago point in time. The Native American in a wax museum sense, or the Native Hawaiian in the hula skirt, and like that's not what civilizations are, right? And that's not what that's what nations are, and human beings, coming together and in a healthy, non-sick, non-poison, non-toxic, non-imperial, non-colonial, and I would argue non-Western, non-barbaric way, when people come together, that process of language development, economic development, cultural, dance, music, art, all of that, right? And the struggles that people have gone through, and sometimes that does involve some war and clashes, but those are learning experiences. If you have a civilization that is capable of learning from the errors they have made, now I will argue the colonial imperialist entities don't do that. They don't learn, right? It's the reason why you have, why is there so much amnesia, right? Why did we just forget how many wars that we wasted trillions of dollars fighting and doing horrible things in, and then we just started another one? Did we just keep forgetting? But yeah, that's part of not being a civilization, I would argue. And I mean, obviously I am saying the United States and the collective West are not civilizations. They are another thing. They are empire, which is and the conflation of empire and civilization is, I think, I was listening recently to a global philosophy summit, and some of the takeaways from that, and one of the issues is that, like, to be civilized, I mean, these are just words, but they have been used historically across the earth. But to be civilized and to be an empire, right, often come together in the West. But in fact, these two things are separate. But empires can pull the cloak of healthy civilization, right? Of, we have this technology, we have this language, we have these inventions, we have this prosperity, we have this big city, right? We have this London, Paris, New York, right? Look upon our great Eiffel Tower, or look upon our amazing Empire State Building, right? And that makes us civilized, but that does not what makes you civilized, right? And so by pulling on the large, just brutal, non-learning, not just, unjust, right? Plunder-based, war-based, right? And this is why I'm talking about this, because it's important to I'm preambling this a little bit more. But the U.S., like its predecessors, right, in the British Empire, French Empire, all the way back to the Roman Empire, etc., in the West, right, west end of the largest continent, Eurasia, the west end of that, they are not civilizations. The United States is not a civilization. It is. It doesn't interact authentically. Like I already said, it doesn't have. It has put together these symbols, many of them stolen from indigenous peoples around the world, stolen from other peoples. The Aquila itself was stolen from Rome. It constructed for the purposes of a minority of people, right? Obviously, the wealthiest white landowning men, to pull the wool over the eyes of their own populations, the masses that they use as cannon fodder and exploited labor, especially the non-white, to then go to other civilizations in other places in the world, Africa, Asia, Latin America, enact warfare, right? That's the military component. It's very important because I would argue one aspect of being an actual civilization as opposed to an imperial state with a metropole, and is that the empire is based upon plunder, on plunder, attacking, crushing internally their own rising up peasants, workers, slaves, and externally crushing others, the police internally, and then externally militarized police, and externally crushing with military other countries, subjugating them and taking their resources. Right? It's the same for Rome, and it's the same for the United States. It's the same for all the empires, Britain, France, etc. They all have done this, and that requires a lot of, obviously, brainwashing and conditioning and lying to get the young people to enlist in their militaries, right? By causing poverty in their own countries, and the only option being to sign up for the military. The Hawaiians are 22% of us are press gang basically into the U.S. military, and offering the only option to a halfway decent life, right, is to be part of the violence doing the imperial military, right, and to do these horrible, heinous things that we can watch. You can live stream all the children dying, right, that the U.S. military and the Western militaries are all supporting, right? That's all because that's all part of this process. So people that are appalled by that, how can America be doing all these horrible things in this war in the Middle East, and not just there, all over around the world, in Congo, what they're doing in Kanaki, New Caledonia, where the French are just shooting Pacific Islanders for their nickel that they have there, right? That is the realization of, your lack of civilization being at least temporarily revealed, right? So the civilization that overlays this endless procession of empire for the last 2,000 years, coming out of, emanating from the hub of the West, the United States, right? Again, these imperial metropoles: London, D.C., Paris, right? Brussels, Rome. At one point, it was Athens and Sparta, right? And so from there, this radiates outward. But they have to pull the cloak of civilization over themselves, because humans also generally, they say the greatest threats to the U.S. military recruiting is moms and a successful economy. So if you're wondering why isn't our economy doing that well, the reality is that Western economies can never do well. They can never do well, and not just because capitalism is a system that which they use, which is, I would argue, this the economic dimension of Western culture. But if the economy is successful, this is clearly outlined. For example, in the internal Pentagon documents, and in the CIA documents, and in the U.S. And Western State Department, and going all the way back. Even the British said that they understood that. They did internal surveys. They have their own internal studies that the West does. That they look and they say, we will not meet our military recruitment targets, which are necessary to maintain our empire, if our economy is too strong. Right? There's misconceptions in the West, right? Because people will not sign up to die, right? People will not sign up to get themselves killed and die, particularly not for billionaire profit. and kill innocent people, and then also maybe die while you're doing that, and commit heinous crimes against humanity, which is what the West does. That's all it does forever. It's military, right? They're not going to do that. I mean, there has to be a really strong reason to even think about doing such things, or there has to be really strong brainwashing, right? For the last thousands of years of the West, there has to be really strong brainwashing, and or very, very, very large pay packages. But sometimes pay is not enough. But for some people, pay is enough, right? People of low morals, people of low integrity. I mean, in the West, so that's another thing is integrity is antithetical to Americanness, and integrity and values, actual values, not platitudes. That's what the West does, is just talk about, oh, we love freedom and democracy and human rights, and then you blow up and crush everyone and starve everyone and flower massacre. That's not. There's never been real values in the West, I would argue. There's only pontification and metaphysical pseudo-philosophical ponderings. But they're, even Aristotle talks about the free just society, while he justified the subjugation of women and enslavement of African, Asiatic, and also West, the Levant region people. And so did Rome, right? And that's what Jesus was a response to. Jesus was a Palestinian. He was a Palestinian from Bethlehem, right? From a civilization in the West Asia that had coexistence of Christians, Muslims, and Jews. Jesus Christ, right? Who resisted a Western barbaric empire, much like the United States. He used even the same eagle. You can see it on Captain America: Brave New World, right? He's still wearing he calls himself the Falcon, but it's a Roman Aquila. That's the symbol they use, and the Romans showed up in the Levant region, and they crushed and they plundered and they terrorized. Right? That's what a crucifix is. The crucifix is the Roman version of the American cluster bomb. Right? It kills horribly, maims, terrorizes, and then hopefully the people will allow their lands to be plundered and their people to be enslaved and subjugated, right? So so bombing a church, right? One of the oldest churches or mosques in Palestine, where Jesus is from, that's simply the new crucifixion. It's the same process. It's the same process. And so, there's never been, I would argue, there's never been Western civilization, not in any, in that way that I'm describing civilization. There's never been any. It is people that are brainwashing themselves, brainwashing their children, right? But with the conditioning, the lying, that's the most important component of barbarism and imperialism, is the lying part, and successfully creating propaganda in the books, in the media, in the schools, this is why Western media is very important. The decisions made at the highest echelons of the power in DC and Wall Street and in these think tanks, that's the most important part, to keep everything together, to keep the empire together, is to make sure that people are lied to, diseducated, misinformed. Because if they were informed, they would rise up to stop that. Nobody right? Again, moms don't want to see their children die. This is admitted by the Pentagon and by the West. Moms, because mothers don't want to see their children die, and they certainly don't want to see their children die for nothing. And they stop their sons from being, picked up by a U.S. military recruiter, disproportionately in black and brown areas, and in Hawaii, where the disproportionate poor Hawaiian areas like Waianae, Kalihi, where I'm from, the biggest military recruiters. And moms don't want to see your children picked up by child snatchers, by press gangers, right? By these people these are real sick people, actually, if you really think about it. If you know what you're working for, what you're fighting for, right? And what those kids are going to do, commit horrible, heinous crimes against humanity for billionaire profit, right? And you're going to come snatch kids. You're a child abuse. I mean, it's just horrible, right? Think about that, right? I mean, it's more extreme in other countries too. Like in Europe, there's a country that's currently, the U.S. is sending billions of dollars. They just grab children. They don't even say, hey son, Do you want to do something great with your life? Do you want the ability to have healthcare and housing and college, right? Which you should have without doing war crimes, right? But do you want the ability to have that? Well, sign up for fight for Uncle Sam and bring freedom and democracy to the world, and you'll have all of that and glory and travel the world, right? And all these reasons why people sign up for the military, or the reasons that they offer this, the reasons that the military pushes as benefits of joining the empire, right? Becoming a stormtrooper. But in Europe, there's a country that is just, they don't even ask you. They just grab people off the street because they've run out of people to throw into their imperial meat grinder, right? And to try to do heinous acts and the greatest evils ever imagined, for a handful of super rich people, absolutely corrupt people that are all happy to blow up and kill and crush and also personally sexually abuse children as well. That's rampant in every Western capital. It's very dangerous when they have these war games here at the U.S. military in Hawaii, because these friends of Epstein and just these horrible child sexual abusers all show up for the world's largest imperial war games called RIMPAC, Rim of the Pacific Games, held every 2 years in Hawaii. So anyways, but yeah, they just grab kids, throw them in vans, and push them to the front line. They give them a gun, 2 weeks of training, and say, here, go try to kill some enemies of our empire, right? Or just go to the front line and pull triggers and make sure that our executives at Lockheed make more money. But I mean, there were Roman and Greek executives. They weren't called CEOs, but they were oligarchs who benefited from the war. They sold weapons, they made weapons, and they sold them at a profit. Just like when they took the resources of Africa and of the Levant region, and they profited from that, right? So there is an unbroken lineage that goes all the way back from the United States, all the way back to Greece and Rome, all through Europe, all the way back. There was a NATO of that time. It was just called all of the provincial, all of the subordinated, vassalized regions, right? Because Rome was an empire, but Rome, that centered in what is today obviously in Italy, expanded out, and each region had a subordinated, it would have been then like a vassal of Rome that would have been in the area now known as France, the area now known as Britain. Each one of these had their own, and towards the end of the Roman Empire, like Europe, right, which is a vassal of the United States at this point, the U.S. Empire, the fringes, the outside of Rome started suffering a lot more as the inside was plundering, and as the empire was rotting, they were demanding increasingly exorbitant taxes. They were basically impoverishing their fringes, bringing more and more wealth into the center, the nexus, right? That was Rome. It was very much the United States impoverishing. Europe is the economy is being demolished. Japan is falling apart. The fringes are falling apart, and the center is trying to bring not the American people, but in DC, right, in the United States, the Rome of the present, right? The money is flowing into the executives. Anyone who has a privileged position in the modern Rome, in the highest echelons of political and business and finance, you can make tons of money, right, inside. But everywhere at the fringes fell apart. Anyway, so that's a lot of talk about what is empire versus what is civilization. Let's come to Hawaii. So the United States in Hawaii is an empire overlaying the Hawaiian civilization, overlaying the Hawaiian country, that even in the Western Western definition of the Westphalian states and an international system, for better and for worse, under heavy imperial colonial domination, right? That's why there's a new thing happening. That's why I brought the BRICS into this. The BRICS has to come into this discussion, because the country of Hawaii was recognized in the 1800s as by the majority of the countries in the world as a official country, like France or Britain or South Africa, or what was then Prussia, right? in the 1800s. And so Hawaii gained that status under this international system that was set up, with stricter borders, and this, but part of this was because of the dividing of the world up during planetary imperial barbarism, right? Also known as the colonial era, right? The lines on in the world, obviously the maps, the ability to draw such accurate maps were not as it was less possible before that. So there's a lot of, we're talking in technological domains, geopolitical domains, and economic and military domains simultaneously. So it's not a 1-to-1 thing. History doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. And but prior to the 1800s, there were not the sense of, here is your border and here's my border, and you don't cross that. If you cross this border, right, there's armed guards, and we will start a war and we'll start fighting you, right? Like for just as an example, in China, the borders were not so strict, with the exception of the wall, because China recognized that outside of this wall there were imperial, like Genghis Khan, is known everywhere, because it was a Mongol empire that did arrive, attack, and take, and moved on to the next place, and it involved a large quantity of overwhelming military force with the horses that they had mastered. In fact, in the Xinjiang region is where West China, East Afghanistan is where the horses were first tamed, and mastery was first happening. Is in that Central to East Asia region where the horses were first domesticated and used horseback riding. And the Mongols really were one of the first to militarily build military strategy around that. It's much more complicated than that. But long story short, but the wall, right, and obviously, and actually, if you look at Russia, China, that entire region, they're all areas that have dumplings. They all had there was a Khan, Kublai, or another of his relatives, right? There was a Khan that ruled China. There's one that ruled in Russia, and there's one that ruled in the South Central Asia, right? And so this and the dumpling was everywhere in this region. And many conceptions of language and what civilization is. Now that obviously that was an empire, but what after that fell apart, a lot of the exchange that happened across that region shares a lot in common. And now, but it didn't go past. But so after that, the Mongol Empire is one reason why the wall was built around China, right? And the invasions, right? It was understood that there were people who engaged in imperial action outside, but inside, I know I'm kind of dovetailing back into this, but I just want to bring this up because this is one of the notes that I took from the philosophy conference, and this is not from that, but Western philosophy is imperial post facto whole clause justification of heinous plunder of others. That's something I'm talking about right now. Native Americans, we brought civilization to them. We stopped them from being savages, and we gave them roads or something, right? And that's why it's great for them that we, destroyed their actual civilization, took everything, abandoned language, culture, and just wiped them out, committed genocide. But that's the same thing the Romans would say about the Palestinians, like Jesus. Well, we brought you some roads. Jesus, you should be happy. Jesus, Syrians, Arabs, the Babylonians, you should be happy because I built you a road. And anyway, so that's not a good justification. We had to blow them up because that hospital was full of horrible criminals. The hospital, we had to bomb that hospital because of X, Y, and Z. This is what Western philosophy is. Well, we have men have something, and that's why women and people of color deserve to be kitchen, house, and cooking and cleaning servants, and the black and brown people deserve to be slaves, right? This is, you've already done the enslaving, and now Aristotle or Thomas Jefferson or some think tank has to come up with justification for why you've done that war, why you've done that slavery, why you've done that misogyny, why you've done this stealing of all the resources, why you've done that neocolonialism, right? After you've already done it, right? It doesn't like there's no there's no justification, right? And so that's what Western philosophy is imperial. Chinese philosophy is civilizational, real-time, multipolar, empirical solving of internal problems, leading by example. So it's what is happening in our country. It's number one. It's not focused externally. China has never gone across this earth, despite being the oldest, large, powerful bloc. It's the largest. It was the largest economy, one of the largest, if not the largest, by population, for the longest period of time, 3,500 years. China had navies that dwarfed the United States and the Europeans at that time. There's no United States at the time. China had navies that dwarfed the collective West by factors of 100, like 1,000 years ago. And they did not choose to do imperial. They did not choose to become an empire. Like some of them thought about it and they said, this is a bad idea. But part of that was because China is an adult grown-up civilization that has gone through, they had periods of warfare. They had periods of imperial. They had external imperial, like the Mongol. They had Manchu, and internally they had damaging wars and leaders, and one of the Confucianism and Taoism. When they settled that, it was like we can exist as Tao. We can have Taoism and we can have Confucianism in the same place, and those things can coexist, and we can figure out how to make these work, and people can work out our problems without having to force one upon the other. Like that was actually, and this was thousands of years ago, right? Europeans are still figuring out, how to, knock two stones together and, not die of, basic illnesses and not fight each other into oblivion. When China was already figuring out how to coexist, the West still can't figure out how to do that. How to allow other people and other systems to exist in the world, right? Without trying to force yours. Our liberal democratic capitalism is the best ever. You all have to convert to my religion, whether that's Jehovah's Witness or some branch of Western white patriarchal Christianity. You all have to be capitalist. The world has to submit to our interests. You have to follow the American way. Even the way they do politics, right? Democrats, we're right because of this, and the Republicans are wrong. The things that they're saying are mostly all false to begin with. It's all lies. But there's like endless fighting, right? And very little actual like understanding the other person. But that is Western culture. It is not to understand, right? It's not to think about what other people are saying. Not really, right? It's to pretend to understand or understand just enough so that you can take advantage of them, right? And kill them and crush them and enslave them and plunder them. To quote unquote win at the game of colonialist capitalist hierarchy, what have you, right? That's hierarchy is just Western Tuesday. It's just imperialism, but like, right? It needs that to function. And so it's really, they're antithetical. You can't. So the China never having become a complete empire is in part because, it's part because, and it's part as a result of, in a kind of synergistic way, of saying, well, why would we go to another place, harm those people, kill those people? Why would we take the Chinese Navy that's 100 times bigger than Britain's and France's and Italy's put together? Why would we take the Chinese Navy, sail to another place, like, India, sail to Africa, sail to the Americas? Why would we sail over there? Kill all these people and take all of their things. That's just like not what we do. What we do is we learn from the other people. The Chinese mentality is like, well, if we blow them up, who are we going to trade with? How will we be enriched by the cultural differences that we can exchange? Like, if we go over there and harm them, right? Like the United States has destroyed the oldest mosques, the oldest cultural sites, great treasures of human history, right? In Syria, in Iraq, you have 5,000-year-old buildings, like ancient, wonders of the world, and the U.S. just blows them up. It's just blown them all up. It's gone, right? Because that it's irrelevant to the Western mind. Anything that's different, like significantly different. I mean, choosing between Catholic and Protestant Christianity. That's like that's the West of the world looked at it. You can't even between your two narrow white. You all believe almost all the same things, and even between Catholic and Protestant Christianity, you still can't agree in that. And you think you think you're going to be able to have actual racial equality and respect Muslims and Africans, and it's just like that's not the Western way. It's not the Western way. Western culture, Western barbarism that pretends to be civilization is imperial. It's act first, steal first, kill first. Ask questions probably never, because if you ask too many questions, you'll find out all the crimes that we've done. Make up stories, whole cloth lying, to justify all the horrible acts you've done. Right? Or pretend like you're good, like you brought civilization, freedom, and democracy to the world. Right? And that is simply Western culture. It's really top to bottom. That's why when the African and Arab people and other people of color are like, it must be burned down. I mean, I'm sorry, but if everything that you have said and done is a lie, right? And you're like, well, we'll fix that lie, and we'll fix that. If this is like trying to construct a house, out of rotten bits of twigs and sawdust. Well, if we stack sawdust high enough, eventually we'll have, a 2x4. I mean, I guess. I mean, it'd be much better to get some actual wood though. But the United States, the West is mountains of rotten sawdust. Unfortunately, it sucks. But I mean, I was forcefully westernized. I can tell you. That's what it is. That's why when you actually, and that's it. I mean, it's what must. It is a natural result, because you, again, as I said, you cannot get people to sign up to do heinous crimes based upon truth. And if your entire country and countries for thousands of years have been doing that, then everything of any kind of significance must be a lie at all times. Right? And that's why it's whole-scale lying and whole-scale cognitive dissonance and whole-scale frustration. And then when the military veterans come back and say, wait, actually, I did war crimes and I was on the wrong side. And also, we're a paper tiger. We're not that strong. We're only good at doing terrorism. I shouldn't have said that word. Because now the digital brainwasher is going to cut my stream off. We're only good at doing terror. And so if you say that, then the U.S. silences you. And once your cannon fodder body is done being cannon fodder in the U.S. and Western militaries, in Roman military, British military, and you're done. Then just go rot somewhere. Take your own life. They don't care. So this is the thing. Actually, I was reading an article that in fact in the U.S. military, they said you're going to get all these skills and they'll be transferable to other jobs. When you come back from the military service in the U.S., like the medical training you get, a lot of that doesn't actually apply. It actually is not enough to get you a job in some kind of healthcare setting. And on top of that, you're all kind of shell shock. You've got all these PTSD. You've got all these other problems that you have to deal with. This is all lies. You're 5 times more likely to end your own life if you join the military. The quality of life you will experience is catastrophically bad. So even if you can get, you do get some benefits, although it's dropping really fast. You can get a higher salary, you can get a GI Bill, you can get better housing, cost of living allowances, and you do get a better deal, or you at least you used to. I think this year they're going to increase the military salary by $10,000 a year or something, because it dropped so low, because the military is even gouging its own stormtroopers, right? That's another sign you're at the end of the road. You're at the end of you're at the end of this phase of Western Empire, because they're not even paying their own centurions. They're not paying their own Roman soldiers. But yeah, so it's like the life you're going to get. Also, one quarter of the U.S. military is food insecure. Their families are hungry. Right, I don't know if that's because the U.S. military wants to, is copying. It wants the military to feel what they're enforcing upon PALESTINE children. Like they want to feel what it's like to slowly have your insides be eaten away, but not quite at the same rate. But obviously I'm being facetious. But the starvation is far worse than GAZA. But like it's a situation that what they try to sell as it's a great solution for you. I mean, and it's going to be the best ever for you. A lot of that is some of the economics. Yes, it will be better than getting a job, a non-military job. But psychologically, socially, it will break you. It will break your family. U.S. military is like way more likely to abuse children. You're way more likely to join the U.S. police, which is itself an internal imperial structure to beat up its own population, especially anti-capitalists, working class people striking, beat up on people for landlords, and beat up the black and brown people and catch slaves for the prison industrial complex that employs 2.5 million disproportionately non-white people to make Amazon vegan and non-vegan Whole Foods cheese, all of the Funko Pops, the parts for Raytheon bombs and Lockheed Martin military equipment that they're going to send to the ISRAEL. And so all of that, is those are reasons not to join. But anyway, back to Hawaii. So because I've been circling around it and I haven't got really to the direct brunt of it. But all of that is reasons why we don't want the United States in Hawaii. As I said, Hawaii is a civilization, right? Hawaii, beneath it, is a country. Beneath the United States fraudulent state is a country. Beneath the United States military occupation is long existing, thriving, multicultural, because not all Hawaiians were the same. The different islands had different, slightly, they're very similar but slightly different ways. And Hawaii had Asians, we had Pacific Islanders of other types, we had Africans in Hawaii, former slaves in the United States, and that was a civilization. Hawaii was a civilization before the barbaric empire showed up and started building all of these bases that are poisoning, blowing up, setting fires, and killing us in Hawaii, and also killing the world, right? And Hawaii is the most important, by the U.S.'s own admission, military base in the world. The U.S. military occupation in Hawaii, the Indo-Pacific Command, by the United States Empire's own words, is the most important base that they have. I'm going to come to that. So, so since I brought that up, let's go to that. Yeah. Hawaii. Yes, this is from a U.S. media. I think it was an internal military document, but this is clearly known, right? Hawaii this is actually even outdated. Hawaii is even more central than it was at this time. This was prior to the Indo-Pacific Command. It was the U.S. PACOM, and they have basically expanded its domain, the domain of Hawaii, into the Indo-Pacific Command. Basically, it includes all of the Indian Ocean and all the countries in that whole region, plus all of Asia, and all of the Pacific. The Pacific itself is the largest geographical feature, really, right? It's 1/3 of the Earth's surface. Like if you look at a map of the Earth, if you look at a globe of the Earth, right? If you turn to the center of the Pacific Ocean, all you see is ocean. It's almost like half the entire planet, the Pacific Ocean. And and again, we it's a huge area with there are more people in the Pacific Ocean, by the way, than in the U.S., Canada, and the entire Anglo world combined, right? It's just a bunch of ocean. It's not. There's islands. There's huge populations in the Pacific. Now, yes, a lot of that's Indonesia and Philippines, but hey, those are our relatives. We are our language. We share languages, including the genderless, no gender pronoun, including third gender people, But we have trade routes, we have established historical relations with Philippines, with Indonesia, and we trace ourselves back to Austronesian peoples, and there are many different migrations that have happened, and we all have undergone colonization. But anyway, long story short, in the Pacific, which is between, right now, obviously, as I brought up, China, I mentioned China. China, if you've been following the streams, is the second, not the second. China is the largest economy in the world in purchasing power parity terms. It is the challenger to the BRICS, to the United States and the West, the collective West. That's why they want to focus all their energy on China. Russia has the world's strongest military, but at the end of the day, again, military alone does not build a future, a civilization, it doesn't ultimately win. Finally, alone, it does not alone win the future, right? Part of the U.S. Soviet Union Cold War, part of the reason why Soviet Union fell, in this contest of capitalism versus communism, East versus West to a large extent, the Soviet Union fell because they could not, again, right, solve internal problems and then model that to the world. That's civilization. Empire is ignore internal problems, pretend to listen, lie to your people, crush other people, and then try to buy off some people inside. It's go around the world, crush, plunder the others, right? Try to hegemonize, make them like you and subservient to you. Take their resources and don't ask questions and don't think too much, right? Civilization is ask questions, consider others, don't reach out in violence and in plunder as much as you possibly can. You'll protect yourself, yes, with walls, or the People's Liberation Army is not small, right? But it's also not the size of the United States. The Chinese military is not the size of the United States, but it does exist to defend themselves. But talk to each other, build coalitions, and then model. Take the best of what has been achieved empirically, again with evidence, as in the Chinese philosophy, right? Take the empirical solving, like what is the best way to organize? All the provinces had an option. What is the best way to grow our economy into 20 teens? And a certain province like Fujian or Sichuan, they had different ideas, right? Huawei, this cooperative model that is borrowing ideas from San Francisco, encourage a lot of technological innovations, right? Cell phones, semiconductors, 5G, 6G, which province will do the best, right? And then one of the provinces, Huawei emerged, and companies like that emerged. And then they say, oh, wow, you did a very good job. That's a good example that you have created, right? Empirically, with actual evidence, right? The phones that are these are great phones you have produced. And they took that model. What was the organization? What was the employment? What was the corporate business model? What structure did you use? What did the governor do, right? And they learn from that, right? And they go, oh, it was a cooperative model, no centralized capitalist billionaire, millionaire, shareholder ownership, but the collective ownership of the population, and encouraging no strict rentier patent system. And that seems to work better because people will, new ideas come out faster and emerge quickly. And that's why China has leapfrogged the United States in all the quantum computing, AI, semiconducting, you name it. And the U.S. is becoming irrelevant. Now they're complaining about overcapacity of EVs and renewable technology, right? And Elon is crying. But that is a result of civilizational thinking. That is a result of win-win cooperative understanding, right? Real evidence-based rationality and empiricism. Am I saying that the West is irrational and not empirical and not evidence-based and not logical? Yes. Period. Look at who your president is. The guy is not even awake to. You can discern whether he's rational or irrational, empirical or not. I mean, it's not even a question. In all Western leaders have basically been slightly more awake than Biden. No, there's no rationality to that. But if you have a civilization, right? That is taking all of these different perspectives into account and listening to them and going, okay, well, you say that this liberal capitalist model, let's say like, okay, you're in the Shenzhen, or you're in, I don't know, whatever your region is, and you want to pursue a liberal capitalist model where wealthy elites own the company, right? There were many, they exist. They're not were, there are some of these, right? And then China says, okay, well, if your liberal capitalist, so-called democratic Western, more westernized model in your province in China, if that is so great, let's see what it can do, right? And it's also, they don't just take whatever that makes the most money. I mean, this is another problem with Western culture, is it is just like high speed oiled corruption, right? It's just like whatever makes the most money, whatever way possible, do that, and bribe everyone, would just bribe whoever you can to make the most money possible. And that is a very limited, narrow, it's the essence of capitalism, which is the essence of Western culture, economically. And that's not a good way to, I mean, I guess it does some things. It does make a lot of people money. Sometimes it does increase vitality, because some people will move for greed. True. Some people will move based up and do things and engage in society based on greed. But that did not win, right? Cooperative models and state-owned enterprises, socialized state-owned enterprise, where the government that supports all the people control electricity, transportation, basic infrastructure, has been very successful. And so the Chinese system is that, well, that will be promoted to the top, and we'll keep doing that. We'll have the state-owned Chinese banks, state-owned Chinese energy, and that's really great. I mean, if liberal capitalism is so awesome and great, and it helps people, makes lives better, it makes people happier, it makes the environment better, right? If capitalism, makes the environment healthier and greener, I mean, I know it's a weird thing to even think, right? But this is an argument that the West has said. No, if your system is great, then let us see your capitalism succeed. Let's test it out, right? And so these discussions, also the Chinese debate, discussion, democracy is actually far more vibrant and thriving. They interact with their government, with their businesses far more regular. The discussions they have internally, they don't show this to the world and the West, because they're not engaged in propaganda like the West is, right? About saying how free and democratic we are. But internally, they had discussed everything under the sun, international relations, everything, energy policy, even gender issues. They talk about that, and there's disagreements, but this is part of the revolution, was the women hold half the sky in China, and a lot of the difference between Korea and Japan, in fact, the gender inequalities in Korea and Japan relative to China is actually, a lot of people say, it's very recognizable. But part of that is because there was rapid progress that is also at least partially owed to the Chinese system of listening to others, including other genders. I mean, this is something that why are no Western men getting any dates, right? Why is there so low cis straight guys having dates? Well, I mean, try taking a bath once. Like, don't dress like a total dork. I mean, it's not that hard actually, but also like, it's not just that, but that's a big part of it. But also, like, you have to be able to listen to women on the other side and what they actually want, right? I would like actual equality, actual partner, right? Anyway, long story short, that's just like that's like multi-thousand-year-old civilizational culture of like listening across the differences, like really listening, right? And actually really caring. That's another thing. You can listen and then go, oh yes, this indigenous population has a matrilineal line, and if you British or French or Americans come to this Pacific island or this African country, marry this person and then kill the village, kill all of these people, these children, then you can take the country. That's how the West listens, like the CIA listens to Angela Merkel. That's the only kind of listening they do. Like, how can we use that to destroy these people? They don't actually care, right? Western man is the familyless people, right? The Western culture is the familyless. They don't care about each other. Not in their own families. They're all trophy wives and trophy children, like I talked about last time, and their trophy and their countries are not. It's irrelevant. Everyone's an individual. Selfish, rational pursuit of self-interest, right? It's just another way to say asshole culture. It's called I don't care about anyone, right? It's called lovelessness. It's called familylessness. It's the West is 2,000 years of infinite orphans. That's why they have to create found families, right? In queer, black, and brown communities, and then people latching on, sometimes too culturally appropriatively with too many Pocahontas costumes. But there is a white urge to build some kind of healthy, caring familial community with indigenous people from a lot of, because the people yearn for that. But that's because it doesn't exist. But this is another aspect of civilization, which is that there's an expression in Chinese philosophy that says, and also in Hawaiian philosophy, right? I'm going to come to the nation of Hawaii and like what's happening. And the governance model of Hawaii, which is that it's familial. We have families, but our families are extended, and our families also extend to even those that are not necessarily blood related to us. Ohana, right? The word ohana is badly mistranslated in Lilo and Stitch, which is a Western liberal trying to make money, culturally appropriating Hawaii, and then selling $100 million hotels, and not giving any Hawaiians anything back. So, right? So that they did the opposite of Aloha when they made that movie, Disney, right? And so did they do with Moana, as I've talked about in previous videos. But the concept of the ohana and the family, right? And the Chinese concept of the whole nation is a family of families, right? It's a family, right? And the family cares about each other, right? We don't just do things with each other. We're not coming to your area to make some money, right? Building a bridge or giving you an electric factory, right? We're giving you an electric system and we're building you a road because we care about you, right? But this is beyond the Western mind. Like it's not intelligible, right? Because the Western culture is loveless, careless, systematic, multi-millennia assholedom. I mean, literally, it's a cold, sick culture. I'm sorry, this is what it is. Right? I mean, capitalism is just like, it's just like it's the dollar transactional formal accounting of, right? The history of the capitalist system is just a formal. I only do things for money for my personal benefit. I don't care about you. Greed is good, right? But that is just the economic, again, receipts cashing in on a selfish, loveless, familyless culture in which even in New York is people pay their wives for. I mean, Donald Trump and but most New Yorkers, not just Donald Trump, most New Yorkers, they don't have marriages. They have long form prostitution with $10,000 a night escorts. But that is Western culture, right? Which is to say there is no true connection. And then you can go pay a shrink $300 to talk about how sad you are, or take Prozac. But you can't actually love anyone, not in any significant way. You can't actually have a community. This is why it's funny when they have community organizations in the West, because it's anti-American. It's anti-European. It's anti-West. And this is why Ayn Rand was correct when she said that, the United States is the country of selfish individualism, and these communists and these socialists, that is a different system. They're antithetical to the United States and the collective West. They are though. That's actually one of the errors. That's why the West can never get past this, is because they don't want to address the things that they don't want to address everything that underlies. They want to skip to the communism, want to skip to the socialism. But and like you get bit. There's like there's people yearning to emerge from the imperial barbaric way into this kind of familial way, right? That's the explosions for all people out on the street, sacrificing their college careers and their future job prospects, right? Going to the Columbia, all these past months of the college campus protests, right? Because you're not going to get it. So that is young people, or Black Lives Matter, right? Not just black people showing up for Black Lives Matter. That is the young people yearning to heal their souls, right? To be full humans, not these kind of hollowed out husks, which is what Western people are, right? Like their NBA daddy and their Lucky Martin marketer mommy. They don't want to be hollow husks, They don't want to just be like marketers for some crappy cigarette company that calls cancer sticks healthy and better because they're toasted, right? I mean that is again, that destroys your soul, that destroys your humanity, that destroys your capacity to have and to be a part of a family, right? if you can't even care about, if you can't even like at least acknowledge, these values, and if you can't even care about yourself, and you don't care about children generally, because you're part of these horrible child murdering operations and child abusing operations, like the U.S. government and the U.S. military and all of the U.S. corporations that all participate in, as we all can see, these heinous acts, right? You kill your own capacity to have a real family, because every night you come home and you can kiss your children when they go to sleep all you want, but you're a child killer, right? And you support that system, and you're not doing anything to question that system, right? And that's Western culture, right? It's just to be the infinite people of orphans who procreate cannon fodder. They selfishly maximize their profit, prestige, and wealth, right? There's uteruses gestate, and then infants come out, right? But there are no real loved children, right? And that's why this attitude towards the children, even in the Western left, which is like, oh my God, get these kids away from me, I can't stand this. So irritating how this baby's crying, and it's like, these are human beings that need love and care to be raised, and somebody had to do that for you, right? But that Western attitude of like, children are an annoyance, get them out of here, till I want to have something to show off like a trophy at a family get together, or to my friends. Oh, look at my awesome successful kid who got a job or got into Harvard, right? That's because the West doesn't have real families. It doesn't have real care and love, not in any systemic way. If you love anyone, you are actually like defying your imperial duty to hate, and to not just hate, to be apathetic, and to lobotomize and cut your heart out. To actually care. That's why I go, oh, what are you caring about, Steph? What are you bleeding heart? Why are you showing up for that? What a stupid person going to that Vietnam War protest. Now they never get a job. Oh, look at all these protests. It's all going to get locked up. The West ridicules, right, its own children, right, that are standing up. You see this, right? Gen X boomer, just left. Some of them who call themselves left, progressive, Democrat, Republicans. They're ridiculing children, right? The young people that are going, we are going to lose our jobs because we need to stop these children being killed in West Asia, in Palestine, right? And you can see your own parents going like, what an idiot, you're so stupid, you should just look out for your own personal benefit, like I did, right? Like the last 2,000 years of us did, right? Why don't you sign up for the military and get a better job and just ignore all the war crimes you're doing? Right? If you think about it a little bit, yeah, that's why it's like that. And so you can't begin to do civilization. You can't even begin to do civilization at any scale, like actual healed human society, right? Until you have to. I mean, this is part of the problem. Is that this is why the Chinese are correct. You cannot copy the Chinese model in the West, right? It's like okay, well let's build again. It's like trying to build a house where all you have is sawdust, right? Well, we'll just take the sawdust and we'll shape it into the shape of Beijing Palace, the Summer Palace. You don't even have wood to build with. Like the West has to do like serious internal work to even begin to try to care in any significant scale. On top of the leadership problems they have, the all these locked in, it's just really just it's the 2,000 years remnants of the sewer of humanity encrusted in the White House. Why do we have so many horrible people running all of our governments and all of our business, political leaders, our religious leaders? What? I mean, that's what you get when you have millennia of all this horror, and the people that run it are literally the worst. And so that all has to be rooted out. You can't do socialism with the Chinese characteristics, America style. You don't even have any characteristics. You don't even have any values, any culture that is even something to. You don't have any characteristics with which to build a socialism. You don't even have any wood that you can even try to build a house. You don't know how to build a house, but you don't even have any wood to build. You have to get rid of all that. That's why the burn it down is applicable. And anyway, so let me come back to Hawaii. So, but all of that is why, we're like, we Hawaiians have something to build from. We have Aloha, we have Kuleana, we have Pono, we have multi-thousand years of feeding, housing, and clothing each other, right? Of coexisting with nature, right? We have centuries upon centuries of that. Beneath the United States barbarism, the Western Empire, we have civilization that we can build from. It's 130 years subjugated, but it's still there. The United States is trying to cut out what remains of Hawaii's heart. Every time it burns Hawaiians alive in Lahaina, it displaces thousands of us to the U.S. Mainland on a trail of tears. The United States is trying to burn Hawaii's soul out, what remains of the Hawaiianness in Hawaii. The U.S. is constantly trying to brainwash our children, conditioning us in schools, destroying our Hawaiian immersion schools where we teach our own Hawaiian language and culture and history. My sister used to work for one. The U.S. forcefully defunded that. So the United States sees Hawaii and it says, wow, these native people, they know how to care and love and have families. They have ohana. We have billionaire white man made movies about ohana without having any ohana in it. It's called Lilo and Stitch and Moana, right? Because it enriches Bob Iger and these rich, horrible people, and more Hawaiians become homeless, right? So look, wow, again, Disney and Hollywood is not about learning about other cultures, right? It's about listening to other cultures to culture appropriate steal and make a ton of money while not actually learning anything. Because if the U.S. actually learned anything from Moana and Lilo and Stitch and learning about Hawaii, it would have begun to, actually, again, learn from our example, right? Of wow, Hawaii was really successful. Hawaii had the highest literacy rate. Hawaii had universal healthcare. And then or look back into the past and go, wow, that was really great that Hawaii had that. Wow, Hawaiians have these great communities internally, even under the colonial subjugation, but they don't learn from that, right? The United States is trying to bomb out and destroy and eradicate and burn what remains of Hawaii. It's very much like what the U.S. is doing to, our friends in Palestine, right? You have all of these children in the Levant region there, and the U.S. is going, wow, you guys this is a really strong people that will resist these horrible crimes, right? Despite what the U.S. is bombing them, white phosphorus, these flower massacres, right? And they're so resilient. Wow, that's amazing. We're run by the sickest, most horrible people, shallowest people in the world in D.C. and in Wall Street and in NATO and in all of our think tanks, right? Well, we're just the sickest people in our military-industrial complex, right? Right. Let's burn out what remains of humanity from the world. This is actually, this is literally the strategy. This is really sick, but the United States and the West hopes, right, that by crushing and destroying every family and making all of the world a planet of sad, violent orphans, by making it an ohana-less planet, there will be infinite, endless chaos, right? Climate change, wars, fires, and if the U.S. and the West can just make everyone broken like them, they can run that havoc and chaos and familyless, loveless, sick, cowardly, dead-eyed people who get up on stage and read teleprompters, right? Or like push, catastrophic ChatGPT sitting in front of a fucking screen. And if the world can just become dead-eyed, sad husks of what used to be humans, because that is a future for humanity, right? It's the Western future, which is we'll all just be military-industrial complex, Lockheed, horrible, sick people, right? On a dying Earth. That is the future. That is the future prospects. That is the great American 21st century. That's the great U.S., NATO, Western century. We're all going to be dead inside, right? And we won't go to any protests. And we won't stop anything because we'll all be beaten down, crushed, and gaslit, and lied to, and threatened with removal of our healthcare housing and military intervention. And we'll all just be sad people, inside. And the people that run the West, they're sick, sad people inside, and they project that into the media. They project it into the movies. They project that into everything they do. And they physically project that with their military. I predict that the Romans and the Greeks were basically the same way. Right? The Greeks talked about virtues. They never practiced any of them. If they did, they would have liberated all the slaves. and they wouldn't have invaded other people's countries, and they would have treated women with equality. But the Greeks were not virtuous people. They were hollow, sick people who talked about the virtuous life and Aristotelian and Platonic philosophy, and to love as though another had loved, and such and such. And you're sitting on stolen Palestinian products, and they're enslaved in your backyard, right? And you're talking about virtues, right? So Biden and Aristotle, this is like the same person. Kamala Harris she's a black woman, she wouldn't count as human in Greece. But this is Western culture. It's to talk about these great virtues and do none of them. But hope that everybody, by being so befuddled and so terrified of this unhinged, nonsensical, unbelievable horror, that they just kind of put their head down, right? And those were the Greek and those were the Roman people. They just put their head down and was, okay, I guess I'll just go to my job and pull this trigger now, right? That's Western culture. And that's why they don't have any revolutions, because they have it's too much of the population is so beaten down, crushed, like they're so deeply orphaned, right? They don't even know how to love themselves, right? And that will last for a while, because you can get really violent people with that. You can get a lot of corrupt, really good liars with that, right? But if the non-Western countries build up their own civilizations big enough, and that's what's happened, right, with BRICS, then the mass orphan, the world of sad, cowardly orphans, that is the West, the familyless people, right, will eventually fall to not just to the militaries of the people who listen and care and have family and treat children like human beings, right? Which is what China does, right? That's why they haven't done any human rights violations, and the West has to keep projecting them, which is what the Hawaiians do, right? That's what ohana is, right? It's actual. There is no translation for the word ohana into English, because the English have never had families. So that does not actually equate to ohana, I would argue. And it means it's beyond biological family. The concept of biological family is one of the deep tumors in the body of the collective West, right? Is the feudal system that they have constructed. The Hawaiian system has nothing to do with that. There was genealogy and ancestral passing down, but this idea of like the genetic superiority of these particular people, this is one of the deep illnesses in Western thinking. Anyway, so it's already 1:00. Okay, but long story short, so Hawaii back into the present, Hawaii doesn't want to be part of this system. We don't want to have U.S. bases in Hawaii. We want the U.S. military in Hawaii. We don't want the U.S. empire in Hawaii, and we don't want to be a part of crushing and destroying other people, to plunder them in Africa, in Vietnam, in Korea, in Afghanistan, which Hawaiians get forced into. Again, as I said, we're way over recruited for the U.S. military, and because Hawaii is the most economically unequal place in the so-called United States, we are extra vulnerable to this. And it hasn't helped Hawaiians at all. Period. The end. We got some jobs. No, the jobs are not worth. They're not worth taking. I mean, this is like, but again, this idea that if you have more money, that was a good deal. I mean, if you have more money, but you sold your soul and you're an empty husk of a person and you want to kill yourself, that's not worth the money. That's why we don't make a lot of money here, but I don't care. Because that's what being a Hawaiian is. I mean, that's just what actually being a Hawaiian is. Now, some Hawaiians have been brainwashed into believing that having $2 million, fancy houses on prime real estate in Hawaii and having a beachfront property is a good deal. But that's because there are Hawaiians that have had their soul ripped out from them by the West, and that's very sad. They've been westernized, they've been Americanized, and that's very sad. But I mean, a lot of their children are making other decisions. Their children are going, I don't want to rip my humanity out and be a dead-eyed, Hillary Caesar, or Julius Biden, I don't want to be that. That's really gross, right? And I would rather be a poor but still have my soul and be a moral person and have children that I can look in their eye and know that I did the right thing, and they can look in my eye and they go, thank you, mom and dad, for doing the right thing, right? But most of the West, when their parents look in their children's eyes, the parents, they go, hey kid, sorry, I didn't go to that protest and I made a lot of money, and I guess that's okay, but I'm basically a fucked up immoral person and I gotta deal with that by drinking copium, by reading CNN, right, and watching pro-imperialist movies, or just, you know, being deluded, right? And the children look at their parents and they go, wow, my parents are like supporting one of these two candidates that's pro genocide. Wow, that's really gross, right? So again, but that's the end of the West. That's part of it, which is going to be ripping apart of people who want to participate in, like I said, the civilization, and the people who will insist upon continuing empire, you know. And that's playing out in Hawaii. There's a lot of corruption in Hawaii. The U.S. illegal state of Hawaii. It's one of the most corrupt places in the super corrupt U.S. Arguably the most. And it's not, you know, and Hawaii is not a part of the U.S., but it's a forcible colonial occupation. In the colonial occupation of Hawaii, there's more corruption than in the settler colonial occupation of D.C., which is indigenous land of Native Americans. But so there's going to be a lot of rooting out of that, you know. And there's a lot of, you know, again, there's problems in Hawaii that Hawaiians need to internally solve. But like the Chinese, but this can be solved over time with people actually listening and working with each other. What is stopping those problems from being solved is the U.S. military occupation that is bombarding us with propaganda, inequality, stomping us down all the time, blowing up our communities, bombing Waianae, dropping ashes on all of the Native Hawaiians, poisoning the water with PFAS and U.S. jet fuel at Red Hill, you know, blowing up all of our sacred land, you know, forcing our children to go commit war crimes and coming back all messed up. And propagandizing us, lying to us, like every generation, we have to struggle. Like people like me, Hawaiians that are not working for the majority of U.S. Fake state of Hawaii economy, have to struggle to try to educate as many of the young people as we can. Because the U.S. owned public, private, and charter schools all teach lies. It's all imperial brainwashing, right? So that's why I got to do as much of this as possible. We don't make any money, or it's whatever the people who donate through Patreon. We make very little money at all. And I'm not making any money from making these kind of videos. I mean, when I do these kind of videos, when I do these kind of posts, like a lot of the time, it's just like, it's you know, it's just, it's educational. But I mean, I don't get a lot of support from a lot of the time. Some people on other social media, yeah, people do share it around, but economically, financially, it doesn't. I mean, I read that like 10 people with 10,000 Instagram or TikTok followers make like $3,000 for one post, and I'm like, what? I actually read it up. If you post for ISRAEL, if you do like U.S. Imperial posting, you can make like 27 cents per just to post, plus 6 cents, 10 cents per like and retweets and like that. I have like 150,000. I have 150,000 at least once a month. I have like 150,000 liked posts, right? I could be making like $20,000 a month if I had no morals, and I just wanted to sell, you know, Starbucks coffee and U.S. weapons. You know, if I had no morals, I could just like, hey, here's a post from my thing. By the way, buy some, you know, GENOCIDE blood covered fries, French fries or something. You know, buy some Reebok shoes, right? Apparently, I was like, wow, I didn't realize. Not just that, but I mean, like that's like how much money people are paid to be post pro ISRAEL anti, you know, PALASTINE stuff, right? If you post imperial propaganda, you can make like tons of money. And I shouldn't have said that. Now everybody's gonna be like, oh man, I gotta get me some of that Daddy Warbucks monies, man, right? But if you do that, but if you can't do that, and it's not that easy. But I mean, if you grow the following, you gotta grow the following, right? But if you do that, you have the money, but then it's all ashes in your mouth, you know, because then you'll have killed whatever was good about yourself, you know. And then you'll be another one of these zombie people walking around the world. They're called Westerners, right? With no children. It's paradoxically you neuter your future. You know, you cut your children out. The West is constantly obsessed with procreation rates, and like Korea's 0.3 children per woman. procreation rates, right? The reality is the West doesn't have any children, though. Again, it has meat for profit and cannon fodder. They're called their sons and daughters, right? It doesn't really have children. So if you make more money, and then right, and you're like, oh great, now I can afford a family, but now you can't have children because now you're the dead thing. Now you're the dead thing, and your children will go to Black, Indigenous, and people of color, who have souls that will nourish them. Children of wealthy white or non-white imperial collaborators are leaving their parents. They're cutting their parents off at record rates, and they're learning from, and that's what Aaron Bush knows. Aaron Bush will learn from Black, Indigenous, and people of color anti-imperialist, anti-colonial struggles, and he cut his family out of his life because that was no future in that, and that was a sick, dead, non-family. It was a conservative Christian horrible cult. There's all kind of different horrible Western cults, but that's one of the subcults, is this Texas radical conservative Christian cult. And he cut his family out, and he said, I'm going to go and support these other people because these people have families. These have real ohana. There's real love and care there. There's a civilization. There is an Indigenous and people of color and Black and people of color anti-colonial civilization that can emerge. But there's nothing that can emerge from this thing called America. Captain America is an exercise in self-destruction. Right? It's like, why are you making Captain? I watched the Captain America trailer. I was like, nobody's gonna watch that because number one, you have a literal IDF member that's gonna be one of the main characters, and I don't know if you're paying attention, right? I mean, Harrison Ford has too many functioning brain cells to be a believable American president, because American presidents, I don't know if you know this, American presidents have to be basically barely reanimated brain dead sentence. What did Biden say this week? And now the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Putin. That was amazing, man. That was amazing. Joe Biden is good for comic relief in an infinite well of sadness that is the West. But anyways, so yeah, there's less and less in the West. Certainly, there's less and less cis hetero families. That is cutting out the patriarchy. Women and non-men and couples are more and more raising children. There's less and less men, and that can be dealt with over time if men can accept actual equality in Western countries. It's different in other places, but in the West, there's been a lot of extreme patriarchy, and that could be dealt with. But literally and in a literal sense, this is why the demographic concern and the quote unquote wokeness is a concern, is because the end of young people are disrooting themselves. They're unrooting themselves from their Western white culture because they don't want to be a part of this. They don't want to be seen around this. They don't identify as that, and they don't want to. They don't know what else to do because the U.S. and the West don't appear to be changing, and they don't want to change, and they probably won't change. Not for a long time, And some it's unknown what will emerge from that, but young people don't want to wait either, and this is basically inevitable. As I talked about, there's economic decline, there's military decline, psychological decline, like in the previous videos. I talked about obviously I talked about Western domination, and I talked about the attempts to get the military back up to snuff. It's not going to work. And then the mental decline, the psychological collapse of people who cannot accept that the United States and the West leading the world is over. But one of the outgrowths of that is that the younger generation, because the West is not dealing with this very well. The younger generation is simply going to reroute themselves. Physically, they're moving to China, to Russia, to Central South America. They're moving to Vietnam, other Asian countries, right? They're not identifying as American. I mean, they might still live in America, but very less and less of young people, majorities are not identifying as American. And I think one day the word American, it will mean like Roman. Like nobody calls himself a Roman today, right? Not in any real sense. Oh, I listen to this, and America and the West the French also and the British will. I think there'll be museums for this dead cultures. And it's not because Arabs and Africans or woke or queer people and women or some, those other non-Westerners are killing Western culture. It's because the West is choosing to not heal from its deep soul loss and sickness. It is choosing not to heal from that. It is and is choosing not to be parents worth. They're choosing not to be families worth being part of. Again, you have to lead by example. But that's not Western culture. Again, this is one of the hardest things. They need to lead by example. They need to learn how to be civilization. People need to learn how to do this. 800 million billion people in what is called the West, right? Right. But in order to do that, they do need to learn how to listen to others, build systems where you lead by example, not crush, conquer, and subjugate, and proselytize, and market to, and lie to, and subvert, overthrow. You need to stop doing that. You need to, but they don't know how to stop doing that, right? This is what is the problem? Throw more money at the military, right? What's the problem? Sanction that country some more. They don't know how to do anything other than that. There was some diplomacy, at least in the United States in part of the 20th century, but a lot of the diplomats, they weren't even American. They weren't even Western. They came over from other places, but there were some diplomats. There was some ability to at least at the highest levels listen and learn from other cultures, to an extent. They were never very good at it realistically. But there's that it's going in the opposite direction, right? So what's happening is the in the same way that the men and women are kind of splitting apart, but then the older generation, younger generations are ripping in half, like they're ripping into pieces, right? And what that's causing is again, there will be Americans and Western Christians like in museums one day. It will just be less and less people will identify that, and eventually it will be like, oh yes, this was the McDonald's that people used to go into and have these crappy burgers and not question the blood that was covered in them, and people acted selfishly for their own best interest, uncaring about other people in the society, uncaring about their own children, and people will study Americans and British and Europeans as lessons to like never ever repeat ever again. That's what I predicted. There will be museums of the dead West, and people will go and wow, these were the kind of rooms that they had, where they had like people serving them and treating them like garbage. They were called restaurant, like these kind of sitting restaurants where they just treated black and brown people like garbage that were serving them, right, to simulate being a feudal lord, right? And these were these sit-in Applebee's. This is a corporate boardroom. This is where the majority of all decisions in the entire countries were made, with a handful of super rich white guys discussing and stealing from all their workers. And as their roads were going to crap, the homelessness lined the streets, everything was falling apart. This was what the Western culture was. It was this, and then the people cowardly going along with that and not overthrowing it, right? That was Western culture, and people like, wow, I never want to be a part of this American, British, capitalist, democracy, liberal project. We should try to never build that ever again, right? This is the future for the United States and the collective West. It's museumification. Like the same way that in a different, not the same, but it rhymes with the way that Americans killed killed countless Native Americans and then put wax museum figures of Native Americans next to a buffalo and a tree in a theater, in a museum display. There will be Captain America and Joe Biden will be standing in a wax form in a museum somewhere, like smiling at the Olympus, literally a Greco-Roman, right? Olympus is falling. There'll be like a Biden smiling in front of the White House wax figure, going, "This was the psychopathic American president who was also brain dead." right? This America is run by puppets like this who are paid by billionaires, and these were all the people. Millions of people came out in the streets for Black Lives Matter and protested, and nothing changed at all. And America died because nothing changed at all, and its system was unfunctioning. And this was what West called democracy. Never allow Western false representative democracy into your Chinese or your African country. If you let that in, if you let that fester, you're gonna turn into a America or a Britain or a France or a Rome, and that'll be the end of you eventually. And young people will visit these museums of the dead barbarian Western culture, right? And they'll be like young African, Asian, Latin American, and descendants of who used to be white children. Then they'll be something else, right? And they'll be like, wow. A lot of them will just have intermarried into indigenous and black families, and they'll have raised children that are no longer American, right? Like our children are no longer American. And one of the parents is white. So what's gonna happen is, or they're just, it's not a genetic thing. It's just like they're just gonna culturally migrate away from that, and the children will visit these museums and they go, wow, I never want to repeat the mistakes of my ancestors, and they're, yeah, your great granddaddy, he actually was an American business person, or your great granddaddy, he was a British soldier and he did war crimes, horrible things to people, and they're like, oh wow, I hope I never join any of these Western militaries. It's a good thing we don't have any Western countries anymore and these barbarian empires, because I would hate to sign up for a military, kill children, and then come back and commit suicide because I hate myself. That's terrible, man. That is really terrible. So little kids will understand who America was, who Britain was, who NATO and the Europeans were, who the Greek and Romans were, and they'll learn from those. They'll learn the lessons of this dead Western culture, and nobody will weep. Oh, like nobody goes, oh my God, they're killing Roman culture. Nobody says that, right? The people who identified as Roman are all dead now, right? Nobody, oh my God, they're killing Byzantine culture, right? The West is saying that now, right? The West is saying that now. They're killing this. They're killing our culture. They're killing, they're killing, the wokeness is killing this, and the children are killing. They're killing great Western civilization and our Americanness. Nobody's gonna say that one day. There just won't be the older generation. You'll just all die out. That's why China is not concerned with invading Taiwan particularly, because like one day the people who identify as Americanized Chinese people will see the errors of their ways. Their parents will die out. They'll be like, no, Taiwan needed to be a part of America. We need a vibrant democracy just like America has. That's what they were taught in Taiwan, with billions of dollars of brainwashing and military funding that guns into Taiwan, like Hawaii. One day, all the Taiwanese who are now 30 years old and were brainwashed will be 60 years old, and then they'll be 100 years old, then they'll be dead. And all of the Taiwanese that grow up in the multipolar world, where China has massively surpassed, and the U.S. isn't even a footnote to history, they would be like, I heard there was this place called America that used to brainwash people in Taiwan. That's what they'll say one day. And that's what they'll say in Hawaii one day. They'll be like, I heard there was this place called America that used to have bases in Hawaii. What a terrible thing to blow up and burn all of the land. That was terrible that they did that. It's great that we're Hawaiian now and we don't have to be brainwashed into believing we're American. That's what will happen one day, right? That's how civilization evolves, and it grows out like broken old toenails. The fractured, cracked calcium of the fists of empire, and eventually the empires beat themselves to death and people grow out of it. I mean, obviously I can't see what happens I spend a lot of time writing science fiction. I can't see what's going to happen in 2200, but what I do know is that the young generation is more radical than me. They're not more radical. The young generation is more healed than me. The young generation has more family and more soul than me. Which is to say, as a half stormtrooper, because I was raised by the United States. They have more of their soul together, because they weren't like I had the soul beaten out of me by going to a $20,000 a year Ivy League feeder school, and so I have deep soul loss. That I admit. The United States beat Hawaiianness and Hawaiian language out of my mom. She was beaten when she spoke Hawaiian, and she has post-traumatic stress disorder from having her knuckles shattered in school. When she went to school, she spoke Hawaiian and they shattered her fingers. with the steel end of like a thick garden hose. And they like broke her hand. That's what they did to Hawaiians, right? And like that echoes onto me, and so I have soul loss. That's part of it, admitting you have a problem, right? But at the same time, I'm also a native Hawaiian who has had my family broken for 4 generations by the United States. But our Holly and our children have not gone through that, and they won't go through that because we will not. I refuse to let our children go through the U.S. public, private, and charter schools that break children and brainwash them for the United States and its empire. So our children are not going through that. And many Hawaiian children are not going through that. And as soon as the United States ends its occupation, which it must because empire is declining and all its bases will need to come in to deal with the balkanizing American civil wars that are happening, cold civil wars, and then heating up. And America won't be able to maintain its military bases just like the Romans, and the Yemen will come in and the BRICS will show up soon, and which they're doing all around the world, and this will not be a thing. But our children will not have to have the shattered, broken toenails and the growing pains to grow out the damage that my mom had, that my mom's mom had, that my mom's had. My great grandma actually knew Liliuokalani. She was personal pen pals, and they exchanged tales of riding horses, right? During the Great Hawaiian Country, when we had the highest literacy rate in the world, the highest, best first world's universal healthcare system, socialized, nationalized hydropower, renewable technology in the 1800s, and Asian, African, and indigenous Hawaiian civilizations coexisting in the Hawaii civilization, or apparent, a host civilization. But since my great grandmother's time, right, a white racist cowboy with a gun like John Wayne, I mean, making all these Yellowstone American imperial movies. This is terrible, right? This is America trying to re-solidify its murderous settler colonial imperial culture. It's gross. My great grandpa was one of those horrible white cowboys who slept with a gun on his pillow and he beat the crap out of his Hawaiian wife. And that was the beginning of the trauma, and it continued through the U.S. military occupation and the empire in Hawaii, in Pearl Harbor with the USS Boston, and that has echoed for 4 generations, right? But I will be the last generation. I am the last generation that will suffer in my family this U.S. brainwashing. I mean, yes, the U.S. still has schools in Hawaii, and that will take a little bit more time for the U.S. for that to be grown out. But the millennial and younger generation of Hawaiians, we're not going to suffer this anymore. And as much as possible, we're homeschool our children, because I do not allow my children to be abused by the U.S. brainwashing system that is called its public and private and charter schools that are forcing, and it's always had ahistorical lies about Hawaii. And also, children are still punished for speaking Hawaiian in school. Our kids speak Hawaiian. If our kids went to public school in Hawaii or private school, they would be abused by the teachers, because teachers, they punish children for speaking Hawaiian in Hawaii. The U.S. intentionally hires the most racist, anti-Hawaiian teachers to teach. The principals of the school say Hawaiian is a language of the loser. English is the language of power and business and money. And every child in Hawaii should be forced to speak English. This was the superintendent of Oahu Public Schools, or a principal of one of these Oahu public schools. And this is the common sentiment. So if our children went to a school in Hawaii, and also military recruiters show up in these schools, right, to steal children, to throw them into the front lines of wars, and again, do all the things I just said, right? So this is why the U.S. is going to be leaving Hawaii in the near future. One of the major reasons why is that the new generation is far more educated and conscious and less damaged, and connecting across the world, just like all of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, is far more educated than any of their parents' generations on these important topics, far more connected than any of their parents' generations on these important topics, economics, politics, and history. And so the U.S.'s days are numbered, and it's going to be very great. It'll be great for Americans as well, because you'll be able to vacation to Hawaii without the money that you spend to take your vacation going to support colonialists, capitalists, and all the hotels and all the tourist enterprises are not owned by Hawaiians. So if you go, I'm going to visit Hawaii ethically, the answer is it's impossible, period. If the United States military occupation ends, then the hotels could be owned by Hawaiians like Cuba, and the Hawaiian government, which could use the money from that to build houses, to clean our waters and our environment, and to give housing and healthcare and education to all Hawaiians, then when you visit Hawaii, it will be fine. And Native Hawaiians like myself would not be upset about your tourist stay, because it will be done in a way that benefits the people of the Native Hawaiians and the people of the country of Hawaii, and not the U.S. empire, right? Okay, anyways, let's finish up. It's 1:30. Real quick though, because I didn't go through any of this Hawaiian history. Yeah, let me just run through a bunch of these what the U.S. is doing here. Yeah, so the U.S. pays $1 to blow up Hawaii, poison our water, and start fires for decades, while we homeless Native Hawaiians are forced to pay $8,000 a month for rent. After the U.S. stole our land, imprisoned our leaders, and banned our language. So this is what was happening. This is a displaced Lahaina mother who prepared for her baby's birth while living in a tent. The 19-year-old Lahaina resident, Kauai Brown, and her partner survived the August wildfire, got housed in a hotel, only to get kicked out just before Christmas. They lived in their car for the next couple of months on the beach. Brown is due with a baby any day now. This is from March. This is not resolved, by the way. It's not resolved. Hawaiians are still homeless out on the beach after Lahaina. Fires are happening right now, so this is not even done. Firefighters work to contain a large brush fire. Speaking of the military, the U.S. military blows up Hawaii, bombs Hawaii, poisons our water, bombs our land, blows up our ancestors' grave sites, and sets fires that kill us and burn Hawaii to ash. Pauakaloa trading area, Big Island, already burned 700 acres. So this is from last year. The U.S. military is setting fires all the time in Hawaii, by the way. They're not going to admit it, but the U.S. military is constantly setting fires in Hawaii, like Lahaina. Now, they don't all kill as many people as Lahaina, right? But they are constantly, when they you know, in PALSTINE, right? The GENOCIDAL army is using white phosphorus on children and innocent people, right? That's war crimes to use white phosphorus in that way. They test white phosphorus in Hawaii. That's what they practice. When the white phosphorus is tested, that's what sets fires a lot of the time, right? The white phosphorus that they use in PALSTINE is being tested in Hawaii, and then it burns us down. So that's another way that Hawaii and Palestine are connected. U.S. military burning us all down. Today, Hawaii is with white phosphorus. Today, Hawaii is the linchpin of U.S. military strategy in the Asia Pacific and the command center of what Wallen Miller calls a transnational garrison state. From its headquarters in Honolulu, Pacific Command and the commander-in-chief manage a vast network of overseas bases and enforces U.S. hegemony in the Asia Pacific region. Again, they just say that it's U.S. hegemony in the Asia. They're not even pretending not to be an empire. Hawaii has also served as a staging area for the U.S. to launch wars in Vietnam and Iraq. So another thing is, the linchpin is the central rod that keeps a tire together, right? It keeps a bicycle wheel together. The hub on which the spokes, right? Each of the radiating pieces of metal comes from, right? When you remove the linchpin, the entire edifice, the entire structure collapses, right? If you take off one spoke or you take off one side, the external fringe element, you know, if you take out, you know, just, you know, let's just say like if I don't know, if Ireland is not in the Western orbit to a large extent, but you know, if Britain falls apart, the American Empire, because Britain is a vassal of America, the American Empire will survive that. If France starts falling apart, I mean, that will be a blow because France maintains bases in Africa, in the Pacific, Kanaki, New Caledonia, Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, which, by the way, they're kicking out, working with BRICS. They're kicking out, the Africans are kicking out U.S. and French military bases and their colonialism there and nationalizing their resources for their own benefit, right? Hawaiians want to nationalize our tourist industry and other land resources, our water and our agriculture, which is all being redirected. We're drying out and being set on fire because U.S. white capitalists, backed by the U.S. military, are moving water to their tourist estates and to their pineapple fields and to their golf courses. That's why we're being burned to ash in Hawaii, right? So Hawaiians, we want to nationalize our water. We want to nationalize our tourism. We want to nationalize our agriculture for our benefit, the same way that Africa wants to nationalize their uranium in Niger. They want to nationalize their metals and and precious resources and other minerals in Burkina Faso, in Mali. Kanaki New Caledonia, the Pacific people there, want to nationalize their nickel, which France is trying to steal by killing a bunch of indigenous people there, right? So again, doing imperial barbarism. But Hawaii, so if France loses New Caledonia, that's bad. If France loses Niger, that's bad. If France collapses as an empire, that's bad. Hawaii is the linchpin, though, of U.S. empire, because 60% of the population of the planet Earth and the majority of the world's resources is right there in ASEAN and in China and that Asian region right there, right? If you add up the Indo-Pacific, it's 60 to 70% of the world's population and resources is overseen by this tiny little spot of land called Hawaii. The fuel for the aircraft carriers, the intelligence network is stationed in Hawaii. The international, the NSACI, all that stuff is maintained from Hawaii. The management of the bases, the power projection point, the fueling at Red Hill. Now, they're making a new fuel facility, but they still need Hawaii. All of this is being managed from Hawaii. It's the Indo-Pacific Command, right? So if the U.S. loses Hawaii, right, how is the U.S. going to maintain this overstretched, massive, sprawling empire? It would be catastrophic. It would be catastrophic for the U.S. empire, by extension, capitalism, by extension, the colonial system, by extension, racism, and the entire for NATO. NATO could stop existing if the United States loses Hawaii, because where is the it's that central. So now, of course, it's possible the U.S. could figure out a way to use Guam and build something. But the thing is, the U.S. can't build shit anymore. The U.S. can't even build a ship to replace broken aircraft carriers getting blown up by the poorest Arab country, Yemen, right? So, I mean, it's unknown what they're going to be able to do there. But long story short, Hawaii is the linchpin by the U.S.'s own admission. So they're going to fight very hard. America is going to fight very hard to keep Hawaii. But we're going to keep fighting to remove it for the benefit of the whole planet. So anyway, okay, and also because it's illegitimate even under international law, the U.S. occupation. Prior to the U.S. coup, Hawaii had the world's highest literacy rate, 98% universal health care, electric lights before the White House, mass affordable transit, industrialization, virtually no homelessness, and full racial equality. Post the U.S. coup, all these statistics reversed. So, faced with the preconceptions about Hawaii, the Europeans exclaimed, this is from 1860s. The island is ahead in literacy, and the enlightened countries of Europe are behind it. In 1859, Queen Hospital provided healthcare at no charge. Again, the universal healthcare system Hawaii had. After illegal military occupation by the U.S., there was a concerted attempt to defund and destroy the system. And today, Hawaiians have some of the worst health outcomes and the shortest life expectancies. In 1880s, Hawaii was electrified, powered by renewable hydropower turbines and affordable mass transit. A system of trains, trolleys, and ferries allowed individuals to commute even from neighbor islands like Maui to the city of Honolulu. The Queen's Hospital system, again, provided universal health care. So this is what the U.S. actually destroyed. It was a civilization and replaced that with empire, an imperial colony. Again, this is a short video of Hawaiian, Keone DeFranco testifying in Hawaii, that is echoing against the sentiments that I am expressing here. But this is the majority of the Hawaiians. We have never wanted the United States. 95% of us signed a petition, co-a petitions against the U.S., Hawaii being part of the U.S. The majority of Hawaiians continue, as in the past, even with the brainwashing, to not want to be part of the United States.
The U.S. military is the greatest threat to life, to the people of fighting. No other nation on earth has stolen our land, poisoned our water, and displaced our people at gunpoint. Only you. Only the United States of America. And now you ask us, a population driven into poverty as a result of your policies, our opinion on the renewal of a lease on land that you stole, that you bombed, that you poisoned, and that you refused to pay for the lease of. In honor of our Ohana and White Night last night, I ask everyone in this room to stand up if you're against the renewal of this lease. Aloha aina. Aloha aina. Aloha aina. Love you, Uncle Kawa.
So, anyways, again, that's a small vote, but if you want to have a real actual vote of who wants to keep the U.S. military in, amongst the Native Hawaiians and the Hawaiian community, it's basically going to be almost none, with the exception of a handful of coconuts that have been whitened and their soul destroyed. Yeah, don't forget to follow Keone DeFranco. Free Kanaki from also in Kanaki, which is again New Caledonia. That's what the French colonizer calls it. France. Anyways. So this is from the Kanaki. We don't want your crappy military exercises that put a target on us. Your colonial repression, France and the West in the Pacific. And obviously the French colonizers, so you cannot necessarily understand all the posts unless you have translate though. That's a great thing. But yeah, this is a video of the French are increasing militarization to crush and kill indigenous Kanaki people in New Caledonia in order to keep control of 25% of the world's nickel, a very important metal for technology and industrial production, and including military. The French want to keep the Kanaki's nickel so they can have cheap weapons to kill other native people. Again, this is just imperialism. This is straight up colonialism, imperialism, as per usual. But again, it's going to be hidden by your Western media and your Western liars. This is a video on RIMPAC if you want to learn about that specific action. 28 partners from Isn't Real to NATO join on stolen native Hawaiian land, plotting on how to maintain their hegemony. This is a short video from Mikey Inouye, who is a organizer of Oahu Water Protectors and very important anti-imperial activist in Hawaii. This week, U.S. military leads 26 countries' militaries in destroying Hawaii to practice genocidal colonial warfare. Yeah, so this is an action that there's going to be taking place, and this is more in the RIMPAC action and what it does. Really horrendous thing. I talk about this frequently, but yeah, it's happening. It's happening this month, August. It's happening right now in Hawaii. Okay. Okay, and another thing I want to bring up, because I said I would talk a little bit about the future. I kind of missed a bunch of the points I wanted to hit, but it's okay. But I mean, to circle back to that, what I said I would talk about, which was how the genocide, obviously in Palestine and the rising Hawaiian consciousness. So people again are turning against. I kind of touched on that. The people are turning against the United States because of that. Children are connecting that to what's happening in Hawaii, which is it is a genocide in Hawaii as well as what it's happening in the Middle East. They're directly connected in so many ways. The U.S. military practices white phosphorus in Hawaii and then drops it in Palestine. Is a native people being displaced for an imperial unsinkable aircraft carrier. Obviously, ISRAEL is just a giant military base. It's even Robert F. Kennedy said it's a unsinkable aircraft carrier for American empire projection. He literally said that. And Hawaii is the same thing, right? It's and so these are so many ways we're directly connected. And people are realizing that. Young people are realizing that, and they don't want to be part of that anymore. They don't want to be part of the United States and its empire. They don't want to be part of any of that. They don't want to wave its flag around. Only Katy Perry were making bad songs that looks like 1990s ripoffs of 1950s jingoistic nonsense about the great American country. And nobody is, I don't think a lot of people are falling for that. Everyone's going to boycott Captain Star Spangled Underpants, Brave New World, because nobody wants to be associated with that except for the most horrible people in the world. And it's more and more clear that's the case, right? American flag, it means swastika around the world, but it's coming to mean that even amongst white 15 to 35-year-olds even in the United States itself. And that's the end. There is no future for this. It doesn't matter how many, you cannot force white women to have more children into saving the West if each one of those children grow up to hate their parents. You know what I'm saying? The control of the women's bodies is the internal intergender extension of Western barbaristic imperial culture, which is, I will force you to make more of myself and I'll beat you down until you produce more children for me. And rather than listen to the women, give them actual equality, learn how to cooperate with the women. I mean, learn what they actually want. I don't want a giant, 600-pound bodybuilder dude who goes to man camp and listens to Joe Rogan. I want like a K-pop star or something. I want like dress nicely, like look appropriate, take a bath, listen to women, like have some kind of some sense of like understanding your diversity of feelings beyond anger and rage. Right? But so because the West refuses to deal with that problem, they will not continue. In the same way that men will not continue to men will be sad and lonely and alone, and not with women for the foreseeable future until they figure out what they're going to do about that. Rise of BRICS and the fall of the West will reshape the Hawaii and the Pacific. And so finally, so in the Hawaii and the Pacific, so BRICS is rising. The United States, NATO warmongers are rapidly escalating their proxy war on Russia to target China too. The U.S. officials boast CNN that they're leading, discussions with EU states to seize Chinese assets in Europe. This would start a huge economic war that can backfire hard. So what this is going to do is, you might have noticed, after the United States fired missile and its proxies fired missiles into Russian territory, hitting two early warning intercontinental ballistic missile nuclear alert system radars, right? This is like if Russia was less sane and grown up, nuclear war could have started because of that. I mean, imagine that Russia shot 2 missiles into American territory and struck American early warning nuclear missile detectors. I mean, just think about that. Okay, imagine Russia like gave Cuba or something and shot missiles in and hit Florida and Texas. Okay. Obviously, right? They're more rational than the United States, and so Russia responded. They went to North Korea and they didn't really send anything new, but they said, hey, at any time we could put missiles in Cuba, and they did give hypersonic missiles to North Korea, the Zircon system, or not the Zircon, but they gave one of the second most advanced system in the world of nuclear missile deployment and bombardment. North Korea can hit every American city in a matter of minutes. At this very second, because Russia did that, and it's in Russia's. I mean, the United. There are many avenues for the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, the counter hegemonic, counter imperial bloc that is standing against the United States and the West. Russia and China have so many options to escalate. There are so many bases around the world. All of them are in jeopardy. Iraq, Syria, you name it. But in Hawaii is another military base, right? And just as the United States seized Russian assets, that was a huge attack on Russia. That was economic warfare. They just seized hundreds of billions of dollars of Russian assets, and that's part of why de-dollarization is happening and the West is collapsing economically because of this failed sanctions and economic warfare. Anyway, now China is much bigger even economically than Russia, and more important than Russia in the globally. I mean, even Russia says that, like, China is still world's factory. Like, you cannot do business in the world if you're not doing outside of China in any significant scale, right? And this is for historical reasons. America would collapse without Chinese products. I mean, it's simple as that. And so U.S. officials are boasting to CNN. They're talking about seizing Chinese assets in Europe. This will start a huge economic war that could backfire. Yeah. If the U.S. begins to actually just start seizing Chinese assets, one of the things that China can do, and that the BRICS can do, is that they can cut off exports, like the basic nuts and bolts and parts that go into cars, trucks, planes, everything in Walmart, right? Everything in all your stores is connected to China. Everything you have is basically connected to China. Your infrastructure, your bridges, your buildings. Nothing will run in America if China says we're not sending another shipping container across the Pacific. I talk about this on and off, but I mean, it's China is being so nice and playing with very, very much kid gloves with America, mostly because they feel bad, because China actually has a soul. China treats their people like family, not just their trophy not just a handful of the siblings that they like, that they give some money to. China treats their own families and their whole country like family, and China treats the world like family. That's why the Cubans work closely with the Chinese and all the countries of the world, so Africa, South America. They're like, China respects us. They talk to us like equals. China just talked to Fiji, a tiny Pacific Island country. Xi Jinping met with the leader of Fiji. Xi Jinping should meet with the leader of Hawaii, which is not the United States state governor, Josh Green. It's a fake state. The legitimate country of Hawaii, right? The legitimate country of Hawaii is acknowledged by the United Nations and the UN Human Rights Committee, High Commissioner of Human Rights. He's personally stated that Hawaiian Islands is that of a sovereign nation state under a strange form of occupation by the United States, resulting from illegal military occupation and fraudulent annexation. Under such under international law of Hague and Geneva Conventions, the governance and legal matters in the occupied territory of the Hawaiian Islands must be administered by the application of the laws of the occupied state, in this case, the Hawaiian Kingdom, not the domestic laws of the occupier, the United States. The United States has no legal jurisdiction under international law in Hawaii. And one option, should the United States choose, which they will, the US and NATO and the West will choose to escalate. A stupid choice, but they will do it because they're a bunch of some of them are as brain dead as Biden. The United States, when they choose to escalate with China, one option that China will have is to recognize Hawaii as China will not even be doing anything new. China could simply recognize the sovereign country of Hawaii under international law. There is an entity in Hawaii called the Nation of Hawaii. Okay, Nation of Hawaii, that is basically, it's a part of the like Ansar Allah in Yemen, right? Like the governments in every country, like Hezbollah in Lebanon, like the actual people's chosen government in Palestine. Right? That the U.S. recognizes as just a bunch of illegitimate, never-do-well criminals, right? But they're actually supported by the majority of Palestinians. Hawaii has a country of Hawaii government still in existence. Okay? And let's just listen to a little bit of what they have to say. Or what we have to say.
Describe the nation of Hawaii as a country run by the elders, run by family, more family oriented than constitutions of the world, which is so politically, made up. And the nation of Hawaii's constitution was a lot of involvement by the elders. So I had over 400 elders in convention from different islands that represented us, all the islands. And their children, their grandchildren, great-grandchildren. So that is who the nation of Hawaii is. I think you would describe.
So again, the nation of Hawaii is family. It's a family and an extended families and the elders and their children dealing with each other as family. There's another video. I would just, if you want to get more into this, I want to reference there's another interesting video that's worth taking a look at to learn more about why the West is the way that it is, and what is the difference between the Western conception of reality, philosophy, economics, politics, this imperial hegemonic empire of very violent structure versus the Chinese civilization state, the Chinese win-win cooperative system, the Chinese government, Chinese decision-making. It's not anyone. It's in all facets of life. It's in all of their civilization. Let me see if it was very interesting because this is somebody who was raised in, he's of Chinese descent, raised in the United States and now lives in China. It's called, this one, the China Development Path in the third plenary session with Einar Tengen. His family built nuclear submarines for the United States Empire in the 20th century. But he has said, I very much regret what our country is, the country I am from is doing. And now he works in China to help the poverty alleviation and expansion and sustainable development, et cetera, et cetera. And but yeah, he was raised, basically through and through in the United States. Um, but one of the major differences that the description of family, right? The country is a large family. You care about your family members. You don't treat your family member. You don't allow family members to say, why does China not have homelessness, right? Oh, it's because they're just hiding it, or they're secret homeless, or it's so authoritarian. The Chinese government is forcing people to not be homeless. People just want to be homeless, like weird American billionaire LARPer hippies that live in a van and live on the side of the street when their family is loaded with wealth. I mean, people want to be homeless. That's not what the majority of homeless people. Anyway, so there's so much mental illness and soul damage in the West. That's like the people pretend to be homeless for fun when people are literally homeless, and then say that that's why, people need the right to be homeless. This is such a sick the West is such a sick place. But the Chinese don't allow their people to be homeless because it would be like having your brother living in the front of your house on the sidewalk, right? And now I know in America, they'll let their own children rot because the West doesn't know what a family is, right? They'll let their own children be homeless. In fact, boomers and Gen Xers own 5 houses and kick their children out of the house and let them live on the street, right? So I know when I say that, right? But I mean, there are some anti-Western Westerners. There are some anti-American Americans who choose to take in and house their children. It's a kind of a weird. It's not really a Western thing to do. What you're expected to do is basically kick your kids to the curb when they don't do exactly what you say. And there's some helicopter boomer parents who put their kids out for a long time and don't ever let the kids grow up, and that's a problem too. That's another soul sickness. It's just like hyper spoiled. That's what gives you an IDF. It's like letting kids do whatever they want, including hurting people and killing innocent people, and then giving them more money, right? That's a whole other problem too. So there's either like hyper liberal enablement of abusive infantile people, or there's like uncaring about the children. But neither of those is actually being a family, right? Families call you out when you're doing something wrong, and hey, you gotta stop doing that in an honest, direct but respectful way. But when you are in trouble, the family also supports you, right? The Chinese do not allow people to be homeless because that would be like the whole country, no matter your ethnicity. It would be like allowing someone to be homeless would be like, it would be disgraceful to you. It would be disgraceful to your family, and it would show how much you don't care about your own people. And the West says, the China only cares about shame. They don't want people to be. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to be seen, cheating or seen having homelessness, and that's why they clean it up, right? Because the West is projecting the fact that it cannot even American and European Western leadership, and many of the population cannot even believe in a society that would care about others. They can't believe that people would actually act in compassion. We're supposed to be selfish, capitalist, self-interest pursuers. We're supposed to be loveless, sociopathic by, heredity or by forcefully beating our souls out, right? The West cannot believe that a society could actually have homeless-free cities like China has, right? But that's what being a modern civilization is. It's having the most advanced cities in the world, like Beijing, Shenzhen, right? Outproducing everything: 6G, quantum computing, electric vehicles, right? Super advanced modernity, successful societies, and caring about the environment. That's your grandmother, and also caring about and having in these huge cities having no homelessness, right? The West cannot believe that because they have no soul and they have no sense of caring in any real sense. But Hawaiian government is based upon that same principle, right? Everyone is your brother and your sister and your cousin. Hawaiians will show up for people that are not even related to them when they're having broken tire. Somebody is, having trouble getting out of the beach, a car out of the sand of the beach. Random people will just come and help. White people, Western people walk on by. I know this because I watched Asians, not even whiteified, westernized Asians that I knew walk past my car when I was stranded on the North Shore of Oahu. And the Hawaiians, I didn't know. I had no idea who they were. They just jumped out of the water. They were having a family day. They jumped out of the water to help a stranger, right? When westernized Asians, because they went to this fancy private, they went to an Americanization school that I went to. They just walked on by. They weren't even white, but they were so Americanized that if you're having trouble, I mean, fuck you. Better for me. You're having trouble, my business will do better, and screw you, right? Oh, it's an opportunity to get one over you and maximize my wealth and my prestige, right? But that's just Western culture. It's not family. It's anti-family. Family is when you come together for bad, strained photo ops on Thanksgiving to pretend like mommy and daddy and the cousins love each other, right? Western family is photoshopped Instagram to pretend like people care about each other, right? So that you can keep your dynastic titles and your wealth. Western family is marriages in order to pass the wealth manufacturing slave plantation or serf fiefdom down, right? It's not about love, right? Family is about title. Family is there's no such thing as Western family. That's why I say there's no such thing. There's no love in any of that, right? They even say there's a joke in Bridgerton. Oh, you want family? You want love? You go have sex with some non-white prostitute or something, and you go find some love on the side. Go around the world and exit our Western culture, because there's no love in marriages. There's only the transition of title, power, and prestige down to the next generation for daddy who wants to continue some imagined idea of what his legacy is going to be. It's nothing to do with caring about children or caring about others, right? Or caring about your wife. No, that doesn't exist. The wife is a long-form prostitute and cooking and cleaning slave. Nothing to do with love. So that's the people make in the West. People make gestures towards love, and they sell products to make money for a soulless capitalist system around Valentine's Day. But there's no love, right? Because the actual love and care and ohana and aloha is right. That's what these are Hawaiian words that have no meaning in the West. It means to actually care about other people, even to your own detriment and your own self-sacrifice, right? Arab culture still has that. That's what jihad is. Just like deep, long-form caring. That's what it is, right? It's like we will give our life so that these other people who are in a worse situation will be free from their suffering, right? But this is not a thing that the West does. West fights wars for personal enrichment, right? That's what it does. It doesn't fight to liberate anyone, right? And so anyway, but long story short, so that's why the Hawaiian civilization and the Hawaiian government is built upon that. That's what underlays the Westphalian hyper transactionalized legal, which there's no law in the West. There's only lawfare. It's not really law. International law is international constantly broken treaties. It's a joke, right? This idea of lawyers are professional criminals that are good at word salad. That's basically what it is. And then being paid by the most powerful people to brainwash, rig juries into giving one or the other leader one or the other oligarchic capitalist control over particular resources or market share. There's no such thing as law in the West. It's another whole thing, right? So international law itself is being reconstituted by the BRICS as well. I mean, and the end of the Western hegemony. You know, the Russia-China partnership breaks Western brains because they say, well, there's no treaty. We don't need to have it legalized, right? But it's like the China-Russia partnership is like the Hawaii Samoa, it's like the Hawaii Aotearoa partnership, right? It's family, right? Hawaiians are not going to go to New Zealand and go, okay, on X and Y and Z day, you're going to give us exactly X thousand pounds of this. And if you don't give us exactly that many pounds of this, we're going to start a war with you or something, right? It's just like, well, hey, family in Aotearoa, in New Zealand, Maori, you need help with this, we'll help you with that. And when we need help, hey, Kanaki, you need help, we're going to show up for your actions in the freeing you from the French colonialism, stealing your nickel, killing indigenous Pacific Islanders in New Caledonia, Kanaki. And Kanaki show up for us, right? And so the Russia-China partnership is actually much more like indigenous, familial, civilizational organization, right? It's not, this is the strict boundary. Now, there might be some illegal contracts that exist, mostly because of the hyper-contractual, hyper-capitalistic, but always breaking the contracts anyway, Western barbarism empire, right? But the Russia and China, they don't have any specifically X and Y and Z, you're going to fulfill this at this time, and if you don't, we're going to lawyer it up, we're going to legal up, we're going to, right? But because that is not necessary, you have two civilizations that are interacting and interfacing, And there are no limits. Military cooperation, economic cooperation. If you need our back, we have your back. If you need our back, we get your back. We need your back, you get our back, right? And we're going to deal in that way, right? Because that's what families do, right? And I'm not saying that all of Russia is a perfect family. They got a lot of problems in there, and China has got its own problems, right? But this is the way that they're dealing. This is the way that China deals with Africa, right? China deals with Africa like family members, right? It's like China goes, Africa, you need roads, you need ports, you need 5G, you need electrical, technological infrastructure, you need knowledge transfers, right? We're gonna give you that. Try to pay it back. Try to pay it. If you can't pay it back, it's okay. We forgive it, right? What does the West do? Here's a bunch of overpriced loans and lectures to make sure we keep on stealing everything from you and you get nothing and you stay underdeveloped, right? That's the U.S. and Europe and Africa, Asia, Latin, all the poorest countries in the world, right? So, but the Belt and Road Initiative is international love. I mean, that's really what it is, right? Sometimes the love is tough because China isn't going to just give it to you for free, because that's not, you're giving people stuff for free. That's how you create Israelis. And never saying no. That's not family, right? The West, that's why I said the West doesn't know how to raise children. It's either give them everything like a liberal until they become these most horrible people in the world and they're genocidal murderers, right? Or they become future Elon Musks, spoiled little brats. Or give them nothing and starve them, and then they're your future slaves. Or you just don't care about them. It doesn't know how to like actually raise people. I mean, I literally mean that, like individually and as societies. If we just give tons of free money to people, then this will make things better. I mean, that doesn't necessarily make things better. I mean, people might misuse the money. And like, you know what's better is to actually care about those people and see how can we, that's what a reservation is. It's like, here, have a drip feed of money and we're going to grab some of your kids and throw them into Vietnam and Korea once in a while. That is not building the indigenous people up. That's why indigenous people are still in terrible economic positions and Hawaiians are still in terrible economic positions because America doesn't care about us. Right? And they don't care about Native Americans. They give them body bags. Here, have some food desert and have a little bit of drip feed of money, just enough to keep you alive, but not enough to help you out. And try to die out faster. That's basically the United States to Native Americans, right? But the way that China interacts with its ethnic minorities, which is to say empowers them, they have a higher birth rates, they have higher everything, higher education, higher attainment, actual attainment. And not just, here's a drip feed of money for Xinjiang. I mean, this is a whole other topic. It's like, here is an economic development path so that Xinjiang becomes a bustling, burgeoning region, and the tourism, 150 million people a year go to Xinjiang. The Uyghur tourism district is going to be huge, and that's going to be great for you, and it will increase your incomes, and you will do great, and people will celebrate your Uyghur culture, which, unlike Hawaiians, they can actually practice their culture without being crushed, and the language is banned, right? And children beaten up for speaking it. Like I said, my sister already can't teach her at her Hawaiian immersion school because the U.S. Is defunding all the Hawaiian immersion schools. China gives every Uyghur gets access to free Saturday language classes, and they encourage. China's built more mosques per capita than any place in the world. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like it's laughable. It's so opposite U.S. treatment of ethnic minorities versus China. It's not. It's literally night and day, because I mean it's a that's a civilization, right? The United States and the West, they beat up on minorities because they're loveless, empty husks. That's a symptom of their deadness inside, and they hate themselves, right? And so they're gonna beat up and hate on Black and brown and indigenous people more because it's almost like it's simultaneously like they hate them because of racism, but they also hate them because Black and indigenous people of color represent the thing they don't have, right? That's why they hate teachers, right? Because teachers sometimes can actually, when they're rogue teachers that teach the truth, they represent good in the world. And so the United States hates teachers and it pays them as little as possible and it denigrates them for a similar reason, because some like teachers and like actual anti-colonial teachers have souls, right? And they care, right? And like some healthcare workers and teachers, they get paid horribly because they do work and they care. And the West hates that. They can't deal with like people that actually care for other people. All right. So, but what China is that everybody just does that. I mean, everybody's like, of course we care. Our greatest leaders are the people that have sacrificed the most on the front lines of poverty alleviation, risk their life. That's how you become a leader. In the U.S., you just you be rich and be a dickhead. That's how you become leader. Right. In China, you have to actually sacrifice. You have to almost die. in a lot of cases, because you go to the front lines of the treacherous areas of poverty alleviation to enter the bottom rung of the Communist Party of China and the socialist system. But it's really like these are manifestations of what the geopolitical bureaucratic statecraft dimension of what being an actual human civilization is about. And Hawaii is a similar way. Not the same, but it's similar. You have families that talk to each other, that treat each other like equals, even not blood relatives, but you're from the same islands. But even if you're not from the same island, you still treat everybody like family. Even white people, you don't treat them different just because they're white. Now, if they show up and they try to steal your land or they're being extremely belligerent, then you tell them, hey, you got to stop doing that. If you show up in China and try to overthrow the country, there you're going to be shit. Hey, you can't just show up here and do whatever you want, and then the West will cry about, oh my God, they have no freedom of the press. Well, they don't want people that are going to try to start color revolution. I mean, you're free to walk around and report, but if you're going to just make up lies and bullshit or try to overthrow the country or start some kind of capitalist shady business or traffic little Chinese girls around, then you're going to get shut down. But that's called no free enterprise in the West because they have no morality. Anyways, I mean, I'm sorry, it sounds harsh, but that's just how it is. I mean, it has to be described that way. You're never going to get better. You have no morality, you have no ethics, you have no basic human decency. Biden is just the living embodiment of the West, and Trump too, both of them. The U.S. escalates to economic war. China cut off the key exports to the U.S. across the Pacific and openly supports Hawaii's legitimate claim as a sovereign country under international law. So this other thing. So because actually because of international law, because the Hawaiian government, right, the Hawaiian government in exile, the Hawaiian government that is being forcefully crushed by the U.S. illegitimate fake state of Hawaii under Governor Josh Green, Ige before him, the U.S. He's also a Zionist, a wealthy pro-imperialist. He's got all kind of investments. He's paid by all the biggest genocidal military-industrial complex contractors. This guy, I mean, he's like literally like a Zionist. He's disgusting character, and also he lies and pretends that he cares about Hawaiians, which he doesn't. He pretended like he stopped the U.S. military in Red Hill. He absolutely did nothing for that. This is a sick character. This is not the legitimate government. I mean, he's as much a legitimate governor as the Palestinian Authority in Palestine. He's a legitimate governor, like the not Ansar Allah in Yemen is the legitimate government. It's just in Hawaii, the U.S. corrupt barbarian empire government has strong control right now, but it's not the legitimate government of Hawaii. The legitimate government of Hawaii is the nation of Hawaii. It's Native Hawaiian people and our collective self-determination. And, which is based on actual family, which is based upon aloha and kuleana pono, which is based upon and has a pre-existing, as I showed, right? Hawaii in the 1800s had an advanced socialist civilization with renewable power, etc. And once the U.S. empire is out of Hawaii, then we can resume that, with the Belt and Road Initiative and with the socialist path, which China is already leading. In fact, Sun Yat-sen was educated in Hawaii and brought the anti-imperialist socialist state-owned enterprise and for all the things that can be done that way, and worker cooperative, smaller enterprises for everything that can't, like Huawei, right? This is the Hawaiian model was brought by Sun Yat-sen to China. And that's part of why they're successful is there's many internal things, obviously. But the Asian and Pacific culture, East Asian and especially Chinese and indigenous Pacific culture is closely interrelated to the point we have the same words. Like the word hui is the same in Hawaiian and Chinese. Like shahui in Chinese means the nation, and lahui in Hawaii means the nation, right? It's all the people collectively working together with no bosses and no landlords, actually. That's what that, hui, because hui does not, it entails people collectively working together for collective benefit. It denotes and implies distribution of viability according to need. That's just called being a normal human. That's not really in the West. You have to explicitly point that out in Marxism because they don't know how to be normal humans, right? So you have to say people who produce things. It should go to people who need things. Like that's it's weird. If you just think about that for a little bit. It shouldn't need to be stated if you actually had a moral place that is fair and cares, like you teach children. But the West teaches. Western oppressed women teach children things that they know in their human heart to be true, and when they grow up, they enter the white man's world that breaks that. Whatever hasn't already been shattered out of them gets broken out of them in the Western capitalist loveless society where they have to go work for these abusive bosses and kill children for money at the university and in the military. Anyway, so long story short, so China and Hawaii have a lot of similarities. We both want to recognize we don't want this Western system where we treat each other like cannon fodder and like tools of profit and to benefit a tiny minority of our wealthiest people and most horrible people, right? And the psychopaths that run everything in DC, right? We don't want to be part of that system. And if China recognizes Hawaii's sovereign country, as already stated, the UN, which is actually more controlled by the United States than anything else. But the UN is unable to get anything done. BRICS can get things done, right? Why? Because BRICS is not run by psychopathic, warmongering, coward, selfish, distilled, like it's like the garbage juice of 2,000 years of humanity, right? That is the West. That's the DC, right? It's the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst, distilled into like wine made from the inside of a dumpster, right? That's the United States. And everybody knows that. We can watch that on the screen, right? And you can watch Israel running the United States, and the U.S. can't figure out who's running itself except for AIPAC, right? So literally the worst child murderers in the world, right? And the U.S. is just going, should we run this undead lich? Are we even running him? Or should we run a worse undead lich like Hillary Clinton, right? Also, she cut her teeth defending pedophiles and people who rape 12-year-olds. That's how she got her start, actually. Literally the worst people. So BRICS is not run by those kind of people, okay? As far as they're people who want to they have problems, but they have countries that are rooting out oligarchy. They're doing their best to. China just passed a new law that said no landlord houses are for living, not for making money, and they follow through on that. And that's why the real estate is dropping. And the bubble that was getting out of control was stopped. And now you can't just have hundreds of properties, just like people who have homelessness in the United States. You can't just own all these properties upon properties and then make tons of money renting them at exorbitant rates. I mean, anyway, I could go on that forever. But long story short, so the BRICS does have countries that are in between. Like India is a country that's still struggling with a lot of these problems, and they can move more Western, and they have their own internal problems. But the future is not with the United States, that is largely pushing and funding their most right-wing and their most reactionary elements. And they know that, I think most Indians see that, even if they're not quite ready to deal with the changes they need to make internally. But again, if you put all the BRICS together as an economic bloc, they are the future, right? I hope most people are realizing this, outside of a handful of brainwashed liberals and conservatives and a handful of the Gen X and Boomer Westerners. I hope people are realizing that whether you like it or not, this is the future, and the G7 is literally being dwarfed every day, more and more, militarily, economically. And so what that means is that BRICS should sanction the United States until it leaves Hawaii. The UN is not going to do it. The UN has already declared the U.S. a criminal illegal occupation, but it has been unable to enforce that. So the UN has shown its ineffectual uselessness. Not just in Hawaii. UN has done nothing for Palestine. UN has done nothing for Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam. Do I have to keep going on? The UN has done nothing to stop human rights crises all over Africa, the poverty and starvation. The UN is an ineffectual U.S. puppet to make the West seem like it has a conscience, which it does not. Okay? So the BRICS does have a conscience and certainly at least a possibility of enforcing rules. And the BRICS could prove itself to the world, to Africa, Asia, and Latin America, by enforcing these rules with regards to Hawaii. And it also could give the United States empire a serious problem by recognizing the sovereign country of Hawaii. So Russia and China, all they have to do, China just met with the head of the president of Fiji. If China started meeting, now I'm not saying they got to do this right now, but this is coming. But China could meet. Xi Jinping could meet with the head of the country of Hawaii, right? Now we have to get a little bit more organized probably until this will happen, and things will go a little bit more deteriorated, because it will upset the United States a lot, no doubt. But I mean, China, and it is inevitable. It is inevitable that this is going to happen because the United States is illegitimate in Hawaii and it is destroying Hawaii, like I already said. Right? There will not be a Hawaii. Hawaii won't be livable for even white people if the current trajectory of U.S. poisoning, desecration, and mismanagement and bombing goes on. You know, Hawaii. It's not if, it's when will Hawaii not be part of the United States, and when will it be formally recognized internationally? And if the United States decides to seize Chinese money like it did Russia, this is one response that they can take. I mean, it's going to be an escalation. The U.S. will do something very stupid with NATO in the Pacific, and then BRICS can respond and say, well, the Russians and the Chinese, we are no longer shipping to the United States. We're shipping to Hawaii. There's actually a law that says everything that comes to Hawaii has to go to a U.S. port, California, and then to Hawaii. All the BRICS got to do is say, we're not going to ship anything else to America, or we're gonna ship a limited quantity of certain things. But if America, do you need cars? Do you need electric? Do you need phone? Do you need Walmart products? Do you need your medicine? Do you need those things? Well, we're not going to ship any of those to America. We're going to ship things to Hawaii, or we're gonna drastically reduce our shipments of everything that you need because China makes it all. We're not going to ship any more Chinese products across the Pacific to you. We're going to reduce that. And also, you need to stop violating Native Hawaiians' rights in Hawaii. Hawaii will be the stopover point for American products, which again, we will Hawaiians, if we control our country, we can make vast amounts of revenue from our ports being used for our own benefit, not for America's empire. We can get our stuff without having to be shipped 5,000 needless miles, climate change, causing climate emissions and destroying and just wasting fuel to go to California, then to Hawaii. And also, it is literally already the legal status under the UN. Right? So it's like a no-brainer. This is gonna happen. I'm not saying that this is what will happen. I'm not saying that Russia and China got to deal right now because they got all kind of problems they got to deal with. But I mean, do you want to deal a blow to the U.S. empire and accelerate the decline? And again, Americans talk about fighting imperialism around the world, but hey, you really want to fight imperialism? I mean, this is, who is doing it? I mean, this is who is actually doing it. Who's fighting Nazis right now? Right? Who's doing the brunt of fighting literal Nazis in Europe right now? I don't know. I'm not, it's not the United States military. It's not the Western military. They're funding and arming it, right? And one country has given 60,000 plus of their children to fight Nazis. If you actually want to fight some of the greatest evils in the world, you can't fight for the West. You have to be fighting on the other side. Yemen, Palestinians, Lebanese, Syrians, Iraqis, Iranian, they're fighting actual Nazis. They're fighting the worst. They're fighting empire. But if you're in the West, all you can do is kind of like try to help stop your evil Palpatine side, right? And BRICS has the capacity to do this. And so, one thing you could do is you could see, hey, as an American, what will it take to help the indigenous nation in the California that talk about stolen land? How can the indigenous part of California get sovereign control so they can get into BRICS? And then you could benefit because you could actually get roads that work. Austin, if you could land back Austin indigenous run, parts of Texas. I mean, that's a lot of work to do. I know it's a super American racist place, but if you can get to the point of dealing with this colonial baggage and nonsense, and you do land back, you can join the Belt and Road Initiative and break off from the dying United States, because there won't be, as I said, there won't be an America soon. It's a matter of time. They're not going to give you, and the thing is, you will benefit because you can get roads, you can get cheap electric cars, $8,000 electric Chinese vehicles, world-class infrastructure. China builds entire cities in a week. Okay, so do you need roads? Do you need ports? Do you need to not be burning and drowning in Houston? Do you want a falling apart rail? Do you want high-speed rail? Do you want the world's best infrastructure? Do you want an economy that actually benefits you? Right? It's not going to come from America. It's going to come from the multipolar world. It's going to come from China is going to help support it. When Israel is defeated in Palestine, China will help rebuild Gaza. China could rebuild. They're saying, it would take 20 years to rebuild Gaza. China could rebuild Gaza in a matter of weeks to maybe a month. They build 3 Gazas worth like across the world. For breakfast. the United States couldn't rebuild Gaza, and Israel can't rebuild Gaza, and Israel can't even keep their own fucking self afloat. So what's going to happen is that as the West is beaten out of the Arab world, because they've had it, Arabs have justifiably had it, then the BRICS will come in and they will build that. The multipolar family will replace the soulless, family devoid, sick empire, and things will rapidly improve, right? And part of that is the political recognition, and part of that is the dying empire is still dangerous because it keeps kicking and kicking and kicking, and thrashing so that's why this is I'm not the spokesperson for the Hawaiian nation, and I'm not the representative. I would like Hawaii to join BRICS one day, but I can't say that. But at some point, this is going to come, and this is an option, and as the West gets more extreme and ridiculous, right? Like they've already shot missiles at the early warning systems. The U.S. has already did Dr. Strangelove, unhinged. That was wild, man. We're just lucky that Putin and Russia is much more sane. They didn't just shoot a nuke back, Oh, you want to shoot our early warning? Oh, fuck you, right? North Korea is very sane. You're lucky that North Korea, Oh yeah, it's already 2:30. Okay, sorry, I'm going. I'm so far off my deep end. I should probably just end. Anyway, long story short, Hawaii needs to be. We need to join the international multipolar world. We need to join the BRICS at some point in the future. Fiji is having meetings with the BRICS countries. We need to have those, and the sooner that we can all get there, the better, and get the U.S. and its genocidal murderers out of our country, blowing it up, starving us, and we need to move on to the multipolar world. I'm sorry, just like I totally lost track of time. Anyways, that's the end of the stream. And if you would like to support everything we do here, don't consider helping us out by directly supporting us through Ko-Fi. I'm sure the algorithm is going to hate this video because I just said a bunch of stuff that's going to make the most horrible imperialist in the world very upset. So consider helping us out through Patreon as well at patreon.com/Neofeud. And also you can get access to behind the scenes of what we're working on at the Silver Spook Cooperative, such as Neofeud 2. Like here's some of the images of that. Working on food, planting and maintaining food. As we gain independence in Hawaii, we're going to need to have more of this, and electricity and energy, internal production. And so we're working on as much indigenous Hawaiian businesses not part of the U.S. empire as possible, not military or corporation or government. And so if you'd like to support us, consider helping us out at patreon.com/Neofeud. You can also support us at by grabbing the games like Neofeud on Steam, which is a cyberpunk adventure game. That's an anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, anti-racist game made by myself, a native Hawaiian leftist, here at the Silver Spook Cooperative. And all the sales do support us and everything we do. You can also get Neofeud on itch.io, along with several other games like Decolonizers, Indigenous Star, and Woman's a book by Holly, who is raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity. And it's also free, or you can give us some money when you pick it up. You can also follow at Silver Spook Games at Octodon.social, and at Silver Spook Games at Mastodon.social on Mastodon, on Twitter at Silver Spook Guy, and at Silver Spook Games for the games related stuff. You can also follow Terminus C, Terminus Cyberstar, which is our my cyberpunk RPG that I'm the content director and the lead writer of. And you can also follow Holly, who is wait, is that the right? That's my mouth. No, that's not it. Okay, you can also follow Holly, who is at the Tech Fairy, or I'm sorry, at Allergic to Blue. And Holly is, of course, Land Back Free Hawaii, Married to Myself, moderator, etc. for the Kid Nix Music and Variety Show. And of course, sharing all these important videos. Masking as always, because hey, guess what? We're still in a pandemic and it's really spiking right now. I just heard nurses and doctors saying, "Wow, we're jam-packed, just shutting entire floors down. We're in a horrible place right now." So please do that as well. And thank you very much to all the people on this list of Patreon patrons. Sorry, I went over so much overtime. Thank you very much. Thanks for helping keep the Silver Spook Cooperative going and helping us keep doing this education and activism. And we will be back in the evening later on for the Twitch stream. And aloha kukiai aina and aloha aina and the empire everywhere. And let's do some family and civilization in Hawaii.